Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I'm your host, Daniel Dolphin. Our guest today started his journey in horses in equine rescues, where he saw the need for a strong foundation and the adverse results of not having that strong foundation. Colton Woods is an evolving horseman who is dedicated to teaching a progressive horsemanship approach built on practical applications and understanding of the horse on a mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual level. He studied equine science and management and agricultural economics at the University of Kentucky. He is a 2013 Legacy of Legend Scholarship recipient, mentored by Kip Fladlin, and recognized as the Equine Science and Management Intern of the Year. He was an assistant to wildcard competitor James Cooler at the 2014 and 2015 Road to the Horse, assistant trainer to Double Dan Horsemanship. He has been a 2018 Kentucky Reserve Champion Extreme Mustang Makeover, 2018 Champion Rumble on the Ranch Colt Starting Competition, 2019 Top 10 Kentucky Extreme Mustang Makeover. He studied classical riding at the Valencia Classical Riding School with Luis Valencia. He has been the reserve champion of 2021 Kentucky Extreme Mustang Makeover, champion of the 2021 Kentuckiana Ranch Horse Invitational Colt Starting Competition. I know him best as the business coach to the horse trainers. Colton Woods, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. It's so weird listening to your own headlines, and I don't know if it makes me feel old or if it makes it feel like there's just been a whirlwind of a journey thus far. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I like that saying about you don't want to die with a body that's in good condition. You want, to be all used up and just every part of you left on the field. And so hopefully we all have a few things to say about ourselves. Maybe not as young as you are, having done all of that, but anyway, yeah. Congratulations to you, man.
Well, no, I appreciate that. It's been quite the journey. It was funny. You were talking about you dying with a body that is all used up. I've just started reading a book. It's called like How to Die with Zero. And It's a whole book on how you should be planning financially, like to have nothing left so that you don't overwork and just have all this money left over at the end, and you're just sitting on it. It's like, why did you spend your life doing something if you weren't going to reap the benefits of it? And it completely goes against my belief because I'm such a saver. So it's a challenging read for me, but it's that concept, right? Like give it all you got and make sure when you get to the end, you got nothing left.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Dave Ramsey and all of that stuff?
Yeah.
Every marriage has a spender and a saver, and my wife would live in a cave and collect lint if it was all left up to her. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm afraid that my wife's going to listen to this podcast and she's going to hear that saying and she's like, yeah, that's you. You're the lint saver.
You got to live a little. That's exactly right.
That's it.
Well, Colton, we start everybody off with the lightning round questions, and these are for points, so you want to be on your A game here. There are prizes involved at the end. So if you were a Jedi, what % chance would there be that you would use the Force inappropriately?
These days, pretty high. These days, pretty high, for sure.
Fair enough. Morning or evening?
Morning.
How early? Are you like a super early morning guy or a 7 a.m. kind of guy? Or
4.
4? Okay.
4 a.m. Yeah. In Texas now, it's super hot. Sometimes it's 3, but 4 a.m. consistently.
I used to do a cycle. I would start riding colts at 2 in the morning. I'd be done by noon. I would do another round from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I was basically getting like 2 4-hour windows of sleep throughout the course. You either conform to that or have a psychotic break. There's no in between.
That's tough.
Bay or sorrel?
Bay.
I say this with every guest, but you just can't imagine how many people pick Bay. It's now probably at 90%.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be 50-50.
It's for me, it's really tough. Like when I say Bay, I'm thinking Bay with a nice white star or white blaze and 4 white socks, like flashy Bay. But like one of my favorite horses in the barn, he's a solid sorrel with a little bitty white star. He's about as quarter horsey as he looks. And he's like one of my favorite rides. But if I'm talking bay, I want flashy bay. Otherwise, plain sorrel's pretty good.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yeah, I can get along with that.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. Yeah, dogs for sure. But I think that at this point, cats chose me. I definitely didn't choose cats. I grew up kind of like despising cats. And then for whatever reason, I have been the collector of cats because any clinic I go to, I'll stand in the middle of the arena. A cat will come and find me, and the barn owner will be like, "We haven't seen that cat in 3 months." And I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, you're Cinderella of cats. And it's not a title that I really wanted to aspire to be, but they've chose me. I've learned to like them, and I treat them like dogs. One of my cats, he sits and shakes because I can't stop training things. So
I think you just named the podcast episode. It's going to be episode 42, Colton Woods, Cinderella of Cats. I'm pretty sure
shit.
I have to do that.
Look what we just did.
That's a moral obligation. let me take a note of that.
Oh, it's not my intention.
Remember who you're dealing with here, Colton. You have to be more careful than that, man. So you said you prefer dogs even though cats have chosen you. Do you have a particular breed of dog that you like?
Yeah, so we have a corgi right now, which is my wife's, that's her number one pick. But at some point, I'll probably get an Australian Shepherd. That'll be my go-to.
If there are good essential oils, do you think it's fair to say that there must also be evil essential oils?
No doubt.
Do you have a horse industry related pet peeve?
Oh, man. So well, at least one of them here. We were talking about the barn just yesterday, and some people, this you either hate me for this or people will love me for this. But one of the things that is one of my biggest pet peeves is when you go to cut the hay bale, to cut it where the knot is on the freaking hay bale. I just started doing TikTok a couple of years ago, and I did a video about that. And I thought I must have committed some kind of like religious crime when I put that up there, because I didn't realize people could get so mad about something that is so trivial and stupid. But anyone that works for me, I will tell them, freaking cut the bale where the knot is, because I hate going to tie something up and that freaking knot being in the way. That will make my blood boil.
Who could be against that? I don't know. Like, that's obviously the logical way to do it. You have a choice of cutting it anywhere. Why not cut it in the best place possible? I am right there with you, Colton. I mean, absolutely. My blood pressure is 20 points high right now just thinking about people doing that. Yeah. I mean, how often
and I
do
honestly
you
think that, like, if someone disagrees, they're going to get really pissed off here in a second, because the thing is, it's how you do the little things, right? And I'm like, if you can't take the effort to cut the freaking thing where the knot is, which means, yes, you might have to flip the bale over really quickly to cut it. Guess what? I bet you're cutting corners in the rest of your life too. Like, that's just kind of where my head goes with it. I'm like, it's so simple.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I am right there with you. That's a good one. Nobody's brought that one up yet, but man, yep, I'm triggered. Absolutely.
Me too.
If you were, I only ask this question to certain people, and you've made the list here. If you were to catch your teenage son with an S&M magazine, would you spank him?
No. Yeah, probably not. Might be a conversation, but I don't think there'd be a spanking involved.
He might like it if you did. Yeah, that'd be a tricky.
That's the problem. Is exactly where my head was at. Like, I'm about to take a sip of my coffee right when you said that. Is exactly what I was thinking.
Oh. I don't know if I'm going to keep that in, but that was a fun moment for us anyway. We'll see.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite beverage?
Black coffee is really hard to go wrong. So, yeah.
Okay. Are you a coffee connoisseur? Like, you have a brand you have to have or anything like that? Or
I like it black and strong. I mean, really. Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, we don't drink that much, but if I do drink at all, I like bourbon. I mean, if I was going to pick an adult beverage,
Okay.
10 years in Kentucky will do that to you, or I like to acquire that,
Yeah.
but we don't drink hardly that much at all these days.
It's hard to do much of that if you've actually got stuff to do, right?
Exactly.
Would you tell us something unexpected about you?
Something unexpected. So probably the a lot of times, like, we're very public on social media. And so there's a lot of content. I spend a lot of time doing marketing, and a lot of folks, they get the idea that, like, they really have an idea of like what we're doing or what we're up to and those types of things. And we try to be as personal and as open as possible. But over the years, like, my initial goal was like, I want to travel and teach clinics all over the country. And that was the goal. And then I got married, and I'm like, I really like, waking up in the morning at my house next to my wife. And that kind of shifted things. And then our daughter is just now a year old. And so for me, like, a lot has shifted, a lot has changed in the last 12 to 24 months for us. And a lot of times people think like, oh, he's going to go off and do this or do that. And it's like, the biggest thing, as much as you know me as like the business guy for horse trainers, and a lot of people have come to us for those things. And a lot of times I spend talking about time and money. Those are the things that people are usually short on, that they need help with getting more of. And so people think I'm obsessed with a better schedule and I'm obsessed with making more money. But what I'm really obsessed with is the freedom that we're all trying to build in our lives. And I think that part is a misconception or something that people don't know about me a lot, because sometimes we talk about the surface level issues that need to be fixed, the problems that we're having in our lives. But ultimately, what I like chasing is be able to spend the time doing what I love doing with who I love being with, and who I love surrounding myself with, and doing, where and going. It's like what I want to do, where I want to do it, with who I want to do it, how I want to do it. Like, those are the things that I'm chasing in my life, is building a business that allows me to be able to spend the time doing what I want to do with my family, with people, be able to jump on a conversation with you like this and be able to say, hey, I want to spend my time talking with somebody that I can learn something from, and be able to surround yourself with people that you enjoy being with. And I've always approached that our business is our vehicle to do that. And if my business is taking me a direction in life where I'm like, I don't really like this lifestyle, then I shift my business. And because my business is my vehicle to the life that I want to live. So the misconception, the misunderstanding, I think, is what you asked. And I think that's a lot of times people see me talking about time and money a lot. And that's just things that we have to get in order. What we're really focused on is building that life, because we only got it. And you and I were talking about earlier, right? We might as well burn the candle, and because we're not getting out of this thing alive. So we might as well live it to the best we can.
Very, very nice. Very well spoken. We'll unpack a lot more of that later on in the conversation, I'm sure. Okay, we'll take it down a little more superficial level here. If you could choose any superpower, what superpower would you choose?
Efficiency. What would be a superpower for efficiency? Because I'm like, I don't know if I could clone myself, if there could be two of me, or if I could be in two places at one time. Something to that effect. If I had 8 arms that I could use, like, that would be awesome. Like, yeah, that something that could increase my efficiency, because I just feel like there's not enough time in the day.
Thoughts or feelings?
Thoughts for sure. Yeah.
Decisive or indecisive? Which are you?
I'm very decisive, but I'm also very willing to change my mind. And so I'll make that decision and I'll run with it. And if I get better information, if my intuition changes, the situation changes, then I will change my mind quickly.
See, I actually view that trait as an analytical trait, because you're changing based on data. I have new and better data, and thus the outcome will be different, but I don't have an emotional tie to the answer. I'm just following the data. To me, that's an analytical, like you said, intuitive. And I see this a lot when we do the thoughts and feelings questions. I usually can peg the person before. I'm seldom wrong about which one they're going to say. But I do sometimes see them then describe themselves in a different way. And I find the dichotomy there infinitely interesting. So I'm weird, I guess. What is the best smell in the barn?
Alfalfa, for sure.
Alfalfa.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book or movie?
Favorite book or movie? Favorite book. I mean, one at the very top of the list is The Four Agreements. Don Miguel Ruiz. That's a really good one. I really appreciate a lot of what Jordan Peterson's brought to the table, whether it's from a Christianity standpoint and how he's broken down New and Old Testament to, as well as his 12 Rules for Life and 12 More Rules for Life. Those two books are really good. Yeah, I like those. Movie wise, we have one TV in our house, but we don't even have cable. Like we do not. We turned on the TV yesterday because I have a student here, and we got rained out, and we put on the first week, which you might be familiar with. That DVD. It says Joe Walter, Brian Newbert, Jimmy Newbert.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's from the 4-6s. It's an old set of them starting 20 Colts, and we put that on yesterday. But I guess one movie I really like, throwback a little bit, is Remember the Titans. I think there's a lot of good stuff in that movie.
For you, who is Batman? Which actor is Batman?
I don't even know who plays Batman.
Okay.
I'm not pop. See, again, I told you we don't have cable. I am not up to date on pop culture.
None of that. All right. We actually, I'll just tell you, whenever our boys were young, we didn't have TV for a long time either. And then we had a TV, but it was not, hooked up. We wound up getting a DVD player, and then we would get box sets of DVDs. So like the Andy Griffith Show, and they grew up watching the same kind of shows that I grew up watching. So the social engineering and stuff. Because when you have a psychological trainer's mind and you watch TV, boy, there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of social engineering and stuff on there that just. I can't believe it.
We don't hardly ever turn that one on, and my daughter's only one, and just when her grandparents, our parents or in-laws comes over, watching how fast she gets locked into a phone screen is just unsettling. And like my wife left this morning with her to go back to her parents for a wedding, and I just looked at her and I was like, keep her off the damn screens. Like, it makes me so uneasy how much, and then there's agendas behind half the shit they're putting out there.
Yeah. So you said, just a little personal question on the side here, but you said your daughter's a year old. So is she running and all of that stuff yet, or still crawling, or what?
So she's crawling very quickly, and she can stand up. But honestly, I think the only reason she's not walking is because she's not motivated enough. Like in her little wheelie thing, she can fly through the house, but she gets around so fast crawling that, we're watching her. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's just a decision that she needs to make because she has all the biomechanics down and she's taking a few steps, but then she's just like, I want to go over there. And she just hits the ground and takes off. I'm like, all right, kid, you do you.
Does she come out to the barn very much?
Yeah. She's ridden with me in my lap, and she's been able to ride around, and she comes out to the barn, and we got some milk goats. So she goes out there while my wife milks milk goats and all that kind of stuff. And so she's around it. She's enjoying it.
But you'll never meet a horse trainer's kid that isn't well disciplined, because when they get about that age, we have to keep them alive and keep them from running underneath a horse or something. And I'm always, colts and problem horses is 90% of what's around here. So everything here will kill you. So when I say no or stop or whatever, you damn well better listen to me right then and there.
Yeah, and we've had it. That's been an interesting situation with my parents and my in-laws because, she'll be crawling through the house and she'll go to the dog bowl, right? And I'm like, and I told him, I was like, don't tell her no. I was like, because we can't stop her from getting there at some point. And it's not that big of a deal. I was like, but when we tell her to stop, she better freaking park it, because we have tractors and we have horses and all this stuff. And so we had to have a big, long talking to with them of like, don't say no on things that aren't really going to get her hurt and that aren't a big deal. Because when we say that word, it means put your booty down. Like, we're not, because it'd be such a big problem. And that it's a trainer standpoint. Do what I say and do it now because your life depends on it.
Yeah.
And it really does. And it's like you have to be able to pick and choose when it's important.
I can remember we had some friends and family that thought I was a little hard on the kids at times, and I'm like, you just don't understand. Like, if they don't listen to me, it could be life and death around here. Like this
Yeah,
is, it's not a negotiable thing right there. It needs to be right now.
100%.
Sweet, salty, or spicy.
Salty.
What do you do when you get down? So if you have bad day, life, work, bad ride on a horse, customer problems, all of those things that get thrown at you, what do you do to handle that?
I usually have to create some kind of space, and I usually need an outlet of some sort. So normally it depends if I get mad about it, if I'm like upset and pissed off about it, I usually work out. And I just go in there and lock myself in our gym and I work out. If I'm upset about something, but it's not so much anger related, then usually it's like I need to go for a walk. I need some space. I need to get away from that situation. And I usually don't talk. I just go internal and I start processing what exactly happened, what could have been done differently. Like, I just break and analyze the situation. And one of the first things that I do is I figure out what is in my control and what is outside of my control. And I try to isolate everything that I don't have control over, and I just try to let go of it. And then I just start finding the couple things that I do have control over, and I do something about it. Because I'm a biggest one. If I can't change it, or if it's in my control and I don't do anything to change it, then I can't bitch about it. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Productive use of time. There seems to be a theme that runs throughout you. You legit have that to your core, man. What is your favorite dinosaur or deep sea creature?
Probably those. I'm assuming they're the velociraptors. They're the ones off of Jurassic Park that come running through the kitchen. Like, whichever ones those are, I like those fellas.
That's a velociraptor. Yes, sir. That's an overgrown chicken. Is all those things are.
Well, that makes sense because I got 40 chickens. So that there we go.
You probably don't have any mice or frogs or lizards or anything like that anywhere near. Yep, they are predators, pure predators.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna call it good right there. And Colton, I'm tabulating your score here. You're at 1,363 points, which I believe is our highest score of all time on this game. So big congratulations to you there.
Thank you. Heck yeah.
That will entitle you either to an awkward silence or a genuine compliment. Your choice.
I'm going to take the one that's awkward for me, which is the compliment, because I'm cool as ever in silence, but accepting compliments is tough.
Yeah, I understand. I had a talk with my son about that yesterday, actually. So Colton, I would say that I find you to be a pretty interesting guy. I'd heard your name before quite a few times, and I was recommended to interview you by a mutual friend of ours. He said, I think y'all would get along pretty well. And I was kind of thinking, he's kind of just like a young kid, isn't he? I mean, and then I got to looking into you, and you were one of those guys that's sort of an old soul. You really seem like you're 10 years older than you are. And I mean that in a complimentary way, not in a, you've lost it or anything like that. But I really appreciate your analytical view on things. You seem to be quite thoughtful. I haven't really heard you yet give what I would consider an unconsidered answer on anything. You really do seem to take your time and think about it, and you have more maturity than you should at your age, which I guess is a good thing. I don't know if that weighs on you a little bit at times too, but you seem to be putting it to work for you, and I like that. You're supposed to make life your bitch, right? It's supposed to work for you. You're not supposed to work for it, and I appreciate that about you, man. So
no, I that means a lot. And when you say, yeah, you seem 10 years older, it's, to me, it's a massive compliment, because probably the mutual friend that got us connected, I'm going to assume that I know who it is. And to me, that guy, he's always been a horseman's horseman. and someone that even other horsemen look up to. And when I first got started, I felt the same way. And I was like, man, I'd really like to get my skills to a point to where I could help other professionals, just because that would require me to go through the journey of getting that far down the road and sticking with it. And so I really, really do appreciate it. And I appreciate the time to come on here and talk with you too, because, I don't know that we both dove into each other's stuff super deep, but it feels like some kindred souls, and we're going to have some fun with this deal. So
absolutely. And I was telling my son the other day, he's trying to sell some show cows right now, and he's a high school senior. So this is like his first transaction with more money than he's ever had in his pocket before. You know what I mean? So this is a big deal. And he met a man in a feed store that was of a very is extremely extroverted kind of guy, gold pinky ring, the whole, and in the cow business, that's not a real common. So anyway, we were talking about that, and he was talking about how complimentary that guy was. And I said, that is something people talk about. A lot of the sales gurus with the psychology stuff, they'll get you into complimenting people and all that. You meet politicians. But the reality is, if you compliment an extrovert, they'll appreciate it. If you compliment an introvert, they're going to become awkward. You just got arm's length from them. They're going to get the highs. Yeah. So you need to recognize who you're dealing with and how to handle them, because you could be your intentions might be good, but you might make them feel awkward, and they're looking for exit stage left at that point. So anyway, there's a little father-son, little view of what you have in front of you in 16 or 17 years.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Any other tips and advice, I would gladly be taking notes right here, because, we got a road ahead of us here. So
everybody wants intelligent and independent-minded kids until you have to raise them, and that's a bitch. Let me tell you.
We're screwed, because my daughter has the looks of my wife and my personality, and I'm like, oh hell! I was like, we're really in trouble.
But my wife is a redhead, and we're both middle children, so there's more stuff to unpack there than you can imagine. All right. Are you a middle child, or are you the oldest, or what? I'm guessing
I'm
you're
the oldest. There was just two of us. Yeah, I'm the oldest, but my wife's an only child, so
okay,
there we go.
Well, why don't you give us kind of the 30,000-foot view of what Colton Woods horsemanship is all about? What do you do, Colton?
You bet. Yeah. So the years ago, the mission kind of, I believe, like, whether you believe it's the Holy Spirit or the universe or whatever speaking to you. And I was sitting on the back of a horse. I was getting ready to get off that horse, and I was trying to find a way to summarize, like, what is this quest? What is this journey that I'm on? And it came to me, it was like educating horses and people with a lifetime in mind. You mentioned earlier that I got started with rescue horses. That's how I got introduced to the industry. And I saw horses that did not have an education, and it landed them in a jeopardizing situation. And so I saw their education as their way out of those dire straits, and the way that could hopefully prevent them from ending back up in those bad situations. And growing up, my mom had always had a rule with my brother and I. We'd go out, kids want crap when you go out to town. And, and she's like, you can have a book or you can have a plant. And that was just like, it was such a strange concept. But like, as kids, it was like, those were the only two options. And so my brother always took the book because he's a little history buff. And I always took the plant because I liked being outside and I liked being in the garden. So, that kind of the idea that at that point, I kind of realized, like, hey, you can teach a man to fish or you can give a man a fish. And I've always been someone that enjoys teaching people to fish. And so initially I just wanted to train horses. And then I realized, like, well, if I help the owners, their horses can be better when they go home. And then I realized if I go teach people in clinic or lesson formats, I could help more horses. And it's transformed all the way to the points where we are today, where I still help the general public with their horsemanship, but I'm also highly invested in helping other professionals. And so we help professionals both that need to develop their horsemanship skills and their business. And we do that through the professional horseman school, or we also help professionals like straight up through their business. because the better that a professional can run their business, the better they can serve the horses, the clients, their family, their friends, their community. Maybe they can take better care of themselves physically and mentally. And it just has such a ripple effect. And it was definitely not in the windshield view when I got into this whole deal. Like I was like, I just want to go ride horses and do my thing. But I had a mentor that challenged me. He's like, you have the business background. You grew up in a family of international business. You can help people. And are you in this to do it for you, or are you in this to help people? And if you help more people, then you'll get more than what you need. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty version of a quick timeline and what we're currently doing.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your start? And I know you have a story about your international business family, what it was like around the dinner table and so forth. So why don't you take us back a little bit to those early days of Colton and sort of how you came into because you didn't start in the horse world at all. You sort of found it. So give us that perspective.
Yeah, so I didn't really start riding horses until I was 19. And then at that point, I was having to learn how to ride horses and make a living. So it was a little trial by fire and a lot of developing bad habits because you're surviving. But rewinding before that, I didn't get around horses until I was about 15, 16 years old. And that was through the rescue, through working at a hunter jumper barn as a stable groom. And then eventually spending 4 summers, let me be more specific, 4 summers working for an Arabian performance horse facility, high caliber Arabian show horses. So that was like the beginnings of the horse start for me. And then the family side, though, very entrepreneurial family, very sales oriented family. And my parents had a business in North Carolina. They also had a business in China. And my dad would spend 6 to 8 months a year traveling domestically and internationally. And so I grew up, the dinner table conversations, the car rides to and from places was them, my mom and my dad, who worked together, talking about their sales team or talking about clients or talking about product development and marketing and going to these events to meet new clients and all this stuff that went into the financial side, the sales side, the marketing side, building their teams, making sure they have the right people in the right positions, overall making sure. And they had to operate with a fair bit of vision because they sold to big box retailers that many of us shop from. Like they sold to Costco and Home Depot and Lowe's and all that stuff. Well, all the products they made wouldn't hit the shelves for 18 months. So like, it's funny when we see things hitting the shelves at Christmas, but the people that are designing those things, those were a year and a half ago designs. And the stuff that they're making now is going to be Christmas after next, so it's really interesting from that side of like, it's like a little peek at what the world's going to look like down the road because all this stuff has a timeline to get it designed and manufactured. And so yeah, it gave me a different perspective. We lived in China when I was 12, 13, 14, around that age. I was there for 2 years as a kid. And that perspective of living in China at that time was just, it really changed the game for me. I got to go to school with kids from France, from Egypt, from Thailand, from Vietnam, from Colombia, from like all over the world. I went to kid and everybody spoke English, but we took Chinese class and we all learned to speak Mandarin. And I got to see the world from a different place, whereas I grew up in a smaller town and everyone was like, went to the same school their entire lives and they had the same group of a few friends. And it really just kind of blew the cap on my perspective and allowed me to see what was possible, but also to see that there's a lot of other things going on around us, not just what's happening in our little city kind of a thing. And so it's been a game changer because as I built my horse business, if we kind of connect this over, when I first got in the horse business, you listen to people that have been successful doing the things that you want to do. And so I took a lot of advice from people that had been in the horse industry for 40, 50 years. And that served me well in certain ways. And it also left me engaged and broke at one point. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because now I've asked my soon-to-be father-in-law to be able to marry his daughter. We're engaged. We're planning a wedding. And I'm like, this freaking horse training thing ain't panning out. Like I'm not I don't have enough horses in the barn. I'm not, even with the ones I do have, I'm barely making ends meet. And I went like that. I went through that for several months from the time I got started. And I say several months because I started making change pretty quick. Like I struggled. And mentor of mine called me and he's like, Colton, how's it going? How's it going, man? And I'm like, I could tell in his voice, he already knew how it was going. And I was like, I got a choice to make. I either bullshit my way through this phone call or I just shoot him straight. But he cared about me. So I was like, this is what's happening. And so crazy enough at the time, though, I had a lot of people calling me for horse training, but they wouldn't send the freaking horses. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And so I was on the phone with this mentor of mine, and he's like, what are you charging? And I told him, and he's like, man, you're not charging him. He goes, I know you're broke. He's like, these people expect to pay more. He's like, and what I realized, and at first I got defensive, right? Naturally, right? Like, what do you mean they don't think I'm not going to take care of their horses? Like I'll do anything. I'll starve before their horses go without. And he's like, no, it's not about that. He's like, they just don't think that with the amount of money that they would be paying you, that you actually have enough money to take care of their horses. And so once I kind of soaked on that, I can tell you exactly where I was standing in that barn, where I was like, I took a big, deep breath. I'm like, I've got to stop taking advice from some of these other horse people that have been in the industry forever. And I need to run a business like I grew up around. And so I kind of shook the dust off, and I was like, and I started restructuring things in how we ran our business. And I went from literally a half empty barn charging $800 a month for full board, full training, to where within about 4 months, we had a wait list start. And then we went to a 2 month and a 4 month and a 6 month, and we got up to an 18-month wait list that we would maintain at any given time. And so we built it out, and we started charging really premium prices, really premium prices, and people happy to pay it. And so that I'm going to stop there. That way we can make sure we can kind of take it from there at that point. But that's where we're at.
So this is one thing I don't know if this is going to require backing up a little bit, but you kind of talk about when you started in the horse business, but then you've also got your college aspect. So were you in the horse business, in your opinion and description, concurrently with college, or did that begin after college for you, or what's the timeline there?
Yeah, I mean, I really look at it that I entered the horse industry after college. I obviously, like in high school, I was grooming and working for all these barns during the summertime, and I was still volunteering at this horse rescue every single day, 1 to 2 times a day. But I didn't look at that as my horse career by any stretch. I really don't put a timeline on. I trained horses and got paid while I was in college, just a few of them. But even then, I was still learning a ton. I really kind of looked at it as once I took that first full-time job after college, and that was like what I was doing. I was learning, I was around horses. We were helping run that business. That's really when I kind of look at it, is the professional start. And then shortly thereafter, I went off on my own.
So you did the Legacy of Legends deal, and that's sort of follows Ray Hunt and Tom Dorrance and their proteges, and we're maybe on the third generation of that at this time. But that is a relatively California tradition, sort of a school of horsemanship, and yet I know a lot of your current business is hunter jumpers and all of that stuff. But then you're telling me you're in an Arabian horse barn, which I can only assume means that you know how to put mascara on a horse and baby oil a muzzle down. And so, So you've done the gambit, man. I mean, are you confused, or how do you sort all that out?
I identify as, I have no idea. That would be the popular thing to say, right, these days. No, yeah. I mean, I always looked at, does this person know more than me? And then can I learn from them? Right. And so in the beginning, it wasn't really like, oh, I want to go work in an Arabian horse farm. It was, we had a friend of a friend through a family friend that had a connection that was like, they might need help. And I walked in on a Tuesday and was like, can I work? And they're like, sure. And I was like, they're like, when can you start? I was like, now. And they're like, how about like tomorrow? I'm like, that works too. And it was just like, I didn't know what I got myself into. I started there on a Wednesday. We packed trailers Thursday, Friday. We went to my very first horse show that I'd ever been to. And we took 33 horses to a horse show. And I was like, this is normal. And they also told me like, yeah, we're going to go to this horse show. This is a funny deal. Like you're going to laugh about this one because I'm like 16 years old, naive as hell, didn't even know what I just got myself into, and get to the horse show. It's 3 hours away, so we're running multiple trailers back and forth. And they're like, we get all the horses settled in. They're like, all right, guys, we'll go get some dinner, and then you guys will come back here and stay. And I'm like, that sounds kind of weird, but okay, we're going to got dinner. And they drop us back off at the showgrounds, and it's me and two Hispanic guys. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're staying in the stalls. Like there was one stall with a tent that we had popped up and 3 cots. And it was me and these two Hispanic guys. No one gave Colton the memo that I was living in the horse stall for the weekend. And so I didn't have a towel. I didn't have a pillow. I didn't have a blanket. So I'm like using my night shirt as my towel to dry off, then sleeping on it during the day. And I the whole time I worked for this, but for 4 summers in a row, we went to a 3-day show, a week-long show, and then a 3-week show. And every time I stayed in horse stalls. So, but it was one of those, like, I was too ashamed to tell my parents because I was like, they wouldn't let me go back and work for them probably. Mm-hmm. But I also felt like I was young and stupid and felt like the idiot because I'm like, I should have known this. And I'm like, how would I have known that they were going to make me live in a horse stall, And so, yeah, that kind of derailed us there for a second. And I was trying to remember where we started off.
Let's see. I was asking you about your varied background. You go from vaqueros stuff to
yeah. I mean, the vaqueros side of things for me, I was volunteering at the horse rescue, and that was one of the first big wrecks that I got into. Was we all went out to one of their facilities, and we were going out for a movie night, and they had this little black mare named Kate. She was like 8 years old. They had her 2 years, and they've been walking her around. They'd be like, she's super sweet to be around on the ground. They're like, oh yeah, we've been putting the saddle on her. Like, why don't you just go sit on her? Right. I'm like 15 years old, 16 years old. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll sit on her. What's the big deal? And just had no experience, complete greenhorn. And, basically the situation, I'll paint the picture, is this really nice lady, but she's pretty heavy set and overweight. And she's like holding the lead rope in front of the horse, just standing right in front. And then it's this little shitty synthetic saddle. And I was like, in the stirrups, they're obviously not turned. So I'm like, okay, I get my foot in this one. I tell my brother, I'm like, hey, why don't you just hold the other one? That way I don't have to bend over to put my foot in it. So I was at least smart enough to realize probably not to bend over and do that. And I mean, I put my foot in that stirrup, and as soon as my butt hit that horse's back and I sat down, I felt it was like a coiled spring. And that sucker just cinched down and just threw her head down to the ground. And I remember just like flying backwards and try to grab the saddle horn, missed it. And I just get shot up to straight straight above her. But then I get one of the worst feelings, and it still gives me chills thinking about it, because I feel my foot get tugged down because I'm stuck in the stirrup that I put my foot in. And so it whips me down, and I end up underneath her, and she stepped on my shoulder, stepped on my back, stepped on my leg. And I was pretty well concussed. And we happened to go be seeing that movie Buck that some people might have seen that night. So I walk in with like a horse hoof print on the back of my shirt and concussed. In small town USA, half the people knew about the wreck before I even got to the movie theater. And I sat there kind of dumbfounded at that point, because up to then it'd probably been like 9 months to a year of just literally being in a round pen made of T-post and like rope that was just looped around to make this makeshift round pen in trial and error. And I had no one to look to, no one to turn to guide me on any type of like groundwork, anything to help me get in the right direction. And I sat there and watched this film that to me was like, people already know how to do this and they teach it and they'll tell you how to do it. And hell, there's people that make a living doing this, like a really good living doing this. And to me, I was just like, well, crap. Like, I just need to go find those people And so one of the first, like the style of the vaquero horsemanship, I really appreciated, not just the aesthetic of it, but also the commitment to putting the horse first, developing the horse as the horse is ready to keep moving along in that progression. And then the refinement, like the true art of getting that horse straight up in the bridle and what that looks like and what it stands for, I think on a history level. And that really captivated me. And so one of the first people I saw in person was Peter Campbell, was going to one of his clinics in North Carolina. And then my wife actually rode in his very last clinic in Kentucky. And, and I've just always had a really good appreciation for it. I'll say it, that group of there's a certain contingency of people in that world of vaquero horsemanship that's super cliquey. And I never fit in over there, probably because I believe in making a living doing what I do. And there's some romanticism that goes on that I don't agree with. And honestly, like through the Legacy of Legends, I'm so thankful to Kip for that. But I just could never get in with the rest of the crew because I was odd man out. I didn't come from the generations of horsemen. I got lucky to get that scholarship, but I tried to be a part of it, and they weren't having it. And so I was like, all right, I continue on.
Yeah. I'm there with you. I kind of butt heads with some of those guys at times too, especially with the bit stuff that I get into. I don't know that I've ever found a group that is as dogmatic as some of those guys. Like it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. If Grandpa said it, that's what I'm going with, even if it's verifiably,
and some of it's hypocritical. I'm very principle based, and if you make a commitment, you do it, and all those types of things. And to say there's a lot of people that are like, oh, it takes this long to accomplish this, or you should never, go out and, charge this much money for something. And it's like, if you really look at what they're doing what they're telling you not to do. And I think that they're sometimes creating a separation. They're telling you one thing and doing something else. And that is something to me that I was just like, burn, baby, burn. Like I ain't participating in that. That's not a chance.
That is a very much a tradition. When I was coming up, the trainers that I apprenticed under, when they were coming up, they were still at a point where if you went to a show and you were starting to get kind of good and you approached one of the old men and asked him how to make your horse better, he would tell you exactly how to go home and screw him up. Like it was a sabotage kind of a mentality back then. What we have now, where you have people collaborating and coming, this is a whole new deal. That did not exist 30, 40 years ago. Not nearly to the degree that it does right now. So we do kind of live in a golden age. One of my pet peeves is when people bitch about what's going on right now. I'll just say, like some of the barefooters, you have that movement going on. And when they make a claim like what farriers do is barbaric, we're in a renaissance for that right now. There's more medical knowledge, more people getting certified. Like we're at the peak of what that has ever been in human history right now. It's not barbaric, it's cutting edge. You can't recognize that it's cutting edge, then I don't really want to hear what the rest you have to say. Is you've missed the whole boat.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you're looking for problems or you're looking for solutions.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what it really comes down to. And if you want to talk about a pet peeve, I cannot stand when people are like, this is the problem. And then they're like, and they just want to bitch about it. I'm like, seriously, like if you're going to bring up a problem, provide a solution. And if you do bring up the problem, you don't have a solution, then create the conversation around it. Try to see what can be unearthed, but don't come just stirring up trouble just to stir up trouble. It's not about having all the answers, but so many people just go around and that's wrong and you shouldn't do this. And it's like, is what you're doing any better? Like, no, you're just griping about it. And I'm so solution. There's my analytical brain. Like, which is not control marriage. I've learned, like literally the other night we were having a conversation. I literally had to ask mom, I was like, do you want a solution to this? Or am I missing it? Cause like all I'm focused on is a solution. And I'm like 6 years into this marriage deal. And I'm like starting to at least ask, because before it was just steamrolling solutions, and I'm like, maybe that wasn't what she was looking for.
Oh, I'm going to depart from my outline here a little bit because we've kind of brought up a concept that I want to unpack. I haven't had this conversation with anybody, but in the early parts of this conversation, you mentioned about a horseman's horseman, and I think we've kind of touched on that a couple of times. And I'm just going to ask, what does that mean to you? And is there a path to business success and freedom for someone who's on that list?
Okay, those are two big questions. So what does a horseman's horseman mean? For me, the way that I look at this, I think everyone might look at it a little differently, but in a principle standpoint of what I'm looking for is, if I identify someone as a horseman's horseman, it's someone that I believe has so much to offer that other horsemen recognize, not just the knowledge that they're sharing, but the ability to do what they're saying. Because there's a lot of people that can teach something but can't do it. And I don't really agree with the whole, like, those that can't do teach, but I think that those that can do and teach and continue learning and pressing it and continue going forward, and they do so with a very open mind. And I think even with the same mindset that I try to approach it, is that when they know better, they do better. And they're not so caught up on, like, I love tradition. I think that tradition has a tremendous importance in everything, whether it's classical dressage, if it's the United States of America, if it's vaquero horseman, the vaquero style, whatever it is. I think tradition is very, very, very important. But so is the cutting edge. So is pressing to that next level. And I think it's someone that, really, to boil this down, what I have found in being very fortunate and being around some really, really good entrepreneurs, business people that do not just $1 million, but they do tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of business a year, and also being around some phenomenal horsemen, is that at the top of the game, they're some of the most open-minded, kind, willing to share people that you'll ever find. They don't gatekeep. They want to help you win, because they know that very few will actually do what it takes. So that eliminates 90-some% of the people that ever have a chance, because most people are too lazy to put the work in. But also they know that if the others get better, they all can get better, because they're willing to share with each other. Mm-hmm. And so there was a meme that floated around a couple of weeks ago online, and it said that collaboration exists at the top and competition exists at the bottom. And I really think that, as a horseman's horseman, we realize that if we are good enough for the marketplace, and the market gets to decide, are you good enough? Because it's a business, and people come to you? Do they pay for your services? Do they buy the horses you have for sale? If you're producing high enough quality results, then, and you do ascend to that top, there's more than enough room at the top for everyone, because people are willing to pay for that. They see the value in it. And I think that's why it is collaborative at the top. And so is there anything you want to dive further on the horseman part? Because
I would just say that I guess your answer to that question makes it more obvious to me why I have the second question about the commercial success aspect of it. Because to me, the people that I would list as the horseman's horseman, without exception, are the ones that not everyone's heard about.
100%.
So, like, if you ask a musician who's your favorite band, he's definitely going to name someone you've never heard of. It's not going to be Metallica or AC/DC or right, one of the Bon Jovi, one of these, or Taylor Swift. I guess I'm a generation back there, but yeah. So like I think of a Martin Black. To me, he's an epitome of that to me. And you have to be at a certain level to watch him work to appreciate how good he is. And I really think when those people I would term a horseman's horseman, when they're doing stuff, the crowd, for the most part, does not understand what's happening in front of them. The little difference is sort of the notes between the notes, or whatever it would be, how you would describe it. You have to be in that top 1% before you appreciate why that guy really is that good. I kind of tell this story a little bit, but this was one of my, since we're kind of having a business conversation, one of my oh shit moments in this business was when I started doing clinics and all. I was asked to MC an expo. And so I'm talking on the mic during the expo, and a guy that's kind of in my area that I'd heard of through reputation and all, and I would get compared to, we would be thought of on the same level by most people. He was riding in the expo, so I'm talking him up on the mic, and I watched him ride. And I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but it just struck me like, this guy is a high level amateur. And the thing that, I mean, it slapped me like a cold fish in the face was that the crowd doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like they're not seeing what I'm seeing here, and they're still impressed. And it was a holy shit moment for me, because I'm like, these skills I've been working on and all of this stuff, they're never going to appreciate it. They don't know. They don't know what's going on. And so that's where that dichotomy of me of the horseman's horseman, because I can think of some guys that are, and I try not to ever discuss other clinicians. I'm not going to name any, but I can think of some really big, commercially hugely successful trainers that are not very highly thought of as horsemen necessarily in terms of their technical skill and that kind of stuff. There's other trainers are watching them and going, yeah, I wouldn't be scared to go show against that guy. I got this. But they're very, very commercially successful. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean it scares the hell out of me that I very much am that analytical type as well. And so I'm thinking of everything in terms of merit and skill. Yeah. And the hard, cold truth is that the most skillful technical person does not necessarily win. And so there's another intangible factor out there that my analytical mind doesn't necessarily grasp onto or appreciate or can quantify. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, it's like this mystical force of why the hell is this person successful? They're not that good. And I really don't mean that in a condescending way. I'm being as honest and candid as I can be here. It's just that it is not the case that the best horseman wins. That's just factual.
Well, yeah. And I mean, certainly we would have to define what wins means, but I think one of the more frustrating things that I think you would agree with me on this and tell me if I'm wrong, but it is frustrating if someone tries to pretend, if someone that say that is highly commercialized, has a big brand and all that stuff, they try to pretend like there's something that they're not, right? Now, they might be able to help people, say on a fundamental level, of very basic rudimentary skill sets, right? And say that's what they're really good at, then there's nothing wrong with that. You could be highly commercialized in that one segment of the business, and that's great. But if they're out pretending like they're eons above that, that obviously would strike any high performer, high achiever, someone that looks up to horseman's horseman the wrong way, because it's like, oh, this is a facade, right? And part of that, I think, is part of like in an expo setting, I've been in those situations. I've been in those settings, and it's interesting when you watch a crowd and they're like, they don't know. But I would look at the crowd and go, it is your responsibility to educate yourself on what is real and what is not happening in front of you that you might think is happening. And then it's also should be up to the horsemen and women that are presenting to be genuine and to be authentic, and not to try to make something seem like it isn't, just to make yourself look better. And of course, there's showmen that are willing to do that to make some sales. And I think that's disingenuous. And ultimately, from a horseman standpoint, we all care about other people's opinions at some degree. And if I ever cared about someone else's opinion, I've always wanted to be respected by the best. And that is actually what has pushed me to aspire to show horses, because I spent so much time around grooming in show barns that I saw the political bullshit that went on, that it gave me, and it's such an early phase in my career before I even rode horses, that I didn't want to be a part of it, and it pushed me away from it. But now, us moving to Texas to pursue the cow horse side of things is because I want to go be in the warm-up arena with Nick Dowers. And I want to go be in the warm-up with these guys that I actually do think are horsemen's horsemen. And I want to go give it my best shot. I want to learn from them, but that's just me, right, on how I approach it. And I think that from a commercialized standpoint, you bring up a really good point with the business side of it. Do you want to set that question up just so that way I what that question exactly is, so that way I can hit it head on?
So if we're looking at that from more the commercial side, by and large, as a clinician, your customer base isn't other professions. Your customer base is the amateur market. And so does it actually matter if you're that good? Like the gap between or the level they're aspiring to get to is just not the same kind of level that you're on. I think it was another podcast guest had said not long ago that, like, if you looked at your skill set as a horseman on a scale of 1 to 10, you'll pretty rapidly get to 6, but it's going to take you longer to get from 6 to 7 than it took you to get to 6. And then it'll take you, longer to get to 7 to 8 than it did. And so that whole diversifying yourself at the top is where all of your time is spent. But most of the amateur riders are never going to spend enough hours in the saddle to, to be splitting hairs and those sorts of levels. So as someone who's skill driven, does it matter in the end in the clinician game, do you think?
Okay.
If the amateur market can't tell the difference?
I guess that depends on what's important to you. So, yeah, I think you're definitely correct that getting, say, 1 to 6, can happen pretty rapidly because anything is helpful at that phase because you have so much to learn. So I think that a real horseman, though, never stops learning and wouldn't hit level 6 and be like, oh, I can commoditize this and I'm just going to do that. Now, there are those people out there because I've run into them and I've talked to them and I'm like, you're full of shit. And those people do bother me. And it actually, from a competitive standpoint, wants me to just absolutely consume their business because from an entrepreneurial standpoint, because they are disingenuous in the fact that they only want to go to a certain level. They only want to go high enough to where they can make money. And I think if we're talking about a horseman's horseman, it doesn't stop there. In fact, it only really just begins. But you realize from a business standpoint of the people that you can help, right? And if you are if we're talking about clinicians and in the horsemanship clinician world that it is, like the discipline of its own, basically, I think that it's important that, are you really there to help? Like, is what you're actually telling people and teaching people the real thing that is going to help them? Or is it some packaged up thing that makes them feel good, but doesn't actually help them? And I think that actually, if it doesn't help them, it creates a safety hazard. And so I'm very big on practical, straightforward information. And as far as overall horseman, sure, I think what you said a few minutes ago is absolutely right, that some of the truly the best horsemen don't have the biggest businesses. They may not be the most financially successful or have the biggest brands at all. But I think that you have to look at, what does it take to be a really successful horseman? What does it take to be a really successful entrepreneur? And what does it take to be a really successful entrepreneur that's a horseman? I think you have to look at those independently and go that some horsemen do not like people. They could be great with horses, but they are not interested in spending their time in business that deals with people. And that is a really big part of building a successful business. And if that is your MO, that is fine. You just have to accept the fact, or you need to bring someone onto your team that does like people and maybe can help scale your business to where your skill set gets maximized. And businesses are meant to work for us. I do like people personally. And so I built my business model accordingly. If you're a trainer and you want to be a really great horseman, but you don't like people, then you might just focus on just training horses for the public and like minimal public outreach, but I think it is important to look at the skill sets that are necessary, because there's a stat out there that I wish I need to go find the source on this, but there's a statistic that said like it was like 85% of people would rather be the person in the casket than giving the eulogy at the funeral. And it's the fear of public speaking in communicating. And if we look at levels of value, we have like a 4-tiered thing, a level of value. The bottom is implementation. That is the training. That is the doing, the farrier skills, all those things. Then we have unification, which is our management of our team. We have communication, which is the third one. That means that you have to actually be able to articulate what you're doing and be able to provide value to a mass amount of people. And then ideas, which is the fourth phase. And it's like, most people are so scared to speak and to share ideas and to communicate that they never reach that level of value, which actually has one of the biggest opportunities for scalability. And so they get stuck in something that's dollars per hour a lot of times. And so I look at it disciplines. Being a really good horseman is a discipline. Being a very good entrepreneur is a discipline. And if you can get good at both of them, then there's lots of opportunity. But some people want to get romanticize the idea that I'm not in it for the money, and you just completely give up developing the skills as an entrepreneur. And it's like, well, I think if you build a really successful business, then you're committed to actually helping other people. Like, if the more successful your business are, the more you can give back, the more people you can employ, the more students that you can help. And that in itself is an act of service. But so that's my little spiel there.
Okay. Well, I was thinking, it occurred to me as you were talking about it, that maybe my definition of a horseman is getting more into the artistic part of it, where art is its own reward. Because whether what I think I'm doing is recognized by the masses or not really doesn't matter to me. It's just one of those little pity party, this sucks sort of thing. So there's a weakness of mine for the world to exploit. There you go. How about we talk a little bit about how a horse trainer might go about attracting the right customer, because not every customer is your customer. And I know you'd like to talk a little bit about this. So yeah, what would be your thoughts there?
Yeah. So first things first is like attracts like. So if you're identifying what kind of clients do you want, one of the first things that we would do is we want to identify what types of people are they? What do they value? Are they timely? Are they professional? Do they communicate clearly? What are the characteristics that make them attractive to you? Like, why do you want to work with these types of people? And do they have the financial means? Do they have the ability to actually give the horse the additional care of like a chiropractor or a vet visit, or are they completely strapped for cash and they can't? Like, we want to identify what those types of people are. And when we look at how they live their lives. And so sometimes when we look at like Facebook ads or something like that, and you look at something and you're like, how is that speaking right to me? Like, how does that thing know that, like, not that you clicked on an ad and it retargeted you, but you're like, are you a male that likes to do X, Y, and Z, da, da, da. And you're like, it's like a horoscope. You're like, how the freaking hell? And it's because they've identified the characteristics of the right buyers for their product and they put it in front of you. And so a lot of business owners, if a horse trainer is going to identify the right clients, you got to figure out what kind of horses do they ride? What kind of activities do they like to do with their horses? Do they just ride on the weekends? Do they horse show? What kind of cars do they drive? What kind of buying habits? What kind of stores do they like to shop at? Are they the only Tractor Supply, Walmart, and go home? Or are they driving a G-Wagon, maybe going on a bougie vacation, doing like, you gotta know who your people are. And then I always tell horse trainers, look at yourself. Now, that doesn't mean if you can't afford the G-Wagon, you don't have to go out and like become them, but you need to understand the characteristics. So if you want your clients to communicate clearly, to be professional, to be on time, to be to be presentable, right? You need to make sure that you communicate clearly, that you are on time, that your barn is tidy, right? That you present yourself professionally, that you dress for success in a way that would attract those types of people, because birds of a feather flock together, like attracts like, however we want to look at this. And so it starts with us and making sure that happens in the attraction phase. And then what we do from there is we have a weed out, like we have a process, right, that they come through, which means that we provide them all the information on our program, on our website, and then they fill out an application. Well, we know that the right types of clients for us are willing to do that. They're willing to follow some instruction of giving me the basic details. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So they're willing to follow some instruction, give me the basic details on them and their horse and what their goals are, when they want the horse trained. And I can look at those answers and go, I don't ride Z-donks, so that's not like my thing. So I can message Cheryl back and be like, hey, Cheryl, sounds like you got a really nice Z-donk, but that's just not what we do. I know whoever down the road, they can help you. But if they are the right person, I've saved myself a ton of time because I didn't have to get on the phone with them. I didn't have to play Facebook Messenger games, all those things. They fill out an application. I'm like, this is awesome. Then we schedule a phone call. And if they can follow those instructions, they're my type of client, because I want clients that, one of the characteristics that I like in a client is that they understand how to follow instructions, because I know for them to be successful in my program, they have to be willing to listen to me and they have to trust me as a professional. So we use an application process to start that process. And there's a lot to that too.
I was just going to say, a friend of mine had a horse trailers for sale in Louisiana Facebook group, and she got sick of it and asked me if I would handle it for her. And it's got these 4 questions you have to fill out to join the group. And one of the first things I did, I went in there and in all caps, the first sentence of the whole deal is, you must fill out all 4 questions or you will be automatically declined. It's like 50% of the people that ask to join the group cannot answer the 4 questions. And it has ruined my faith in humanity running that Facebook group. It really has. I could see 10% not reading the sentence, but it's like 50%. I mean, how hard is that? But and I'm totally on board. Like the 50% of the people that can't handle that, I don't want to deal with you. You are 100%. Way more drama than I want in my world. Yep.
And that's a really good point, right? Because like from a horse trainer standpoint, when we help horse trainers implement, like we have a 5-step process, and it's decision, subtraction, closing, delivery, retain, and upsell. And so that closing portion is like starts the moment they message us to say, hey, I'm interested in your horse training program, all the way to the point that we get a signed contract with a deposit. And so that application process, when we teach trainers how to do it, they're like, well, before I started using this application process, I was getting 20 messages on Facebook, but only 3 people filled out the application, which is higher than that. But if we're using those types of numbers, and what happens is they get overwhelmed that they're not getting enough applications. I'm like, well, you're still getting the same amount of Facebook messages, right? Yeah. Are you sending the right type of response so that they will go to your website to fill out the application? Yeah, I'm sending exactly what you told me to. I'm like, okay. And only 3 of them are filling out the application? Yeah. I'm like, good. You got rid of the other 17 that weren't the right fit. And they're like, but they're not getting applications. I was like, because they can't follow instructions. Do you want to deal with them? Hell no. Like, let them fly, and that's the whole thing, is like the application process is not really about them filling it out. It's about the right people going through that, because they will do it. And the application doesn't ask complicated questions. I'm sure that Facebook group, it's very rudimentary.
Oh, questions. Yeah. It's like, do you have a trailer for sale? Are you trying to buy a trailer? I mean, it's not math science, Yeah.
We literally ask, like, what's your name? What's your horse's name? Does your horse have any medical problems? What do you want your horse to be able to do? What are the problems that you're having? Like, things that would have to be answered anyway. We're just like, tell us that up front. That way we know. And when do you want your horse to go into training? Like, nothing, not a freaking philosophy paper, but it's the act of doing it. And then from there, like, because you can imagine if a horse trainer didn't do that, didn't weed people out, and 50% of you saying they're going through that Facebook group that are trying to get in. If you let half your barn in that's not the right fit, that's when people get to something called burnout. And that's when they're done because they're like, this isn't worth it. These people are nuts.
Or you spend all that time on the phone with those people individually. You just wasted 3 hours this week on not your customer, right?
100%.
That's the part of it that kills me. So, man, yeah, if you can save that much time, that is absolutely worth it. And speaking of business and all, Colton, I think it's about time we give homage to our sponsor for this episode. Since we're on filtering and technology, it made me think of our sponsor for the day. So our sponsor for this episode is Canter Off, the dating app for equestrians. Are you sick of people who would rather walk along a beach at sunset when they could gallop? Ladies, are you sick of guys with the audacity to want to go out to dinner on a Friday night when they should know that Friday nights are for braiding manes? Guys, do you keep meeting girls with nose rings and you can't get past the urge to clip a lead rope to it? Do you need someone in your life who is okay with being number 2 on your list of time and financial commitments? Welcome to Canter Off, the dating app for equestrians. Our 89-point personality assessment will select for you just the right breed of equestrian. We all know that hunters and jumpers are totally not pretty much the same thing. And we think you deserve a partner that knows that too. We'd never try to match a flat seater with a buggy driver. That would just be silly. You need a dating app that understands that all dressage queens deserve their king and that not all riding boots belong under the same table. On Canter Off, we know that your life as a horse person brings into play certain trade-offs that only other horse people will understand. We don't ask for superficial criteria like height and income. At Canter Off, we know there's obviously no discretionary income that doesn't go to our horses, and we're all tall enough when mounted. Nay, we get down to the things that really matter. Are more than 12 barn cats going to be a problem for your potential mate? Can they envision a world where there isn't a mini in the house? Is George Morris the best of our lifetimes or of all time? Do they have a veterinary insurance policy already in place? Can they do some acceptable farrier work? Do they think horses can be turned out together safely, or are they sane? We get down to the nitty-gritty and match you based on things that really matter. Canter Off, the dating app for OTTB rehabbers, warm blood appreciators, and anyone else who knows your pinky is just for show. If you wear denim in the saddle or otherwise here by mistake, we encourage you to try our sister apps. Rodeo, not Rodeo, Bucker Off, for those into short-term leasing, not ownership, if you know what we mean. Bridled Up, for appreciators of bridle horses and flat hats who also want a white dress soon. Turned Out, for the over 40 and newly divorced who are looking for some companionship without being tied down, metaphorically, of course. And finally, if you are into being tied out, check out Pony Play, where the naughtiest ponies are looking for the right rider to discipline the fresh right out of them. All right, Colton, we've paid the bills today.
Oh, man. I hope it paid well.
By the way, my sense of humor is my filter. If you don't get sarcasm, if you're not into the dry wit and all that stuff, we're not going to get along. You're going to find that out really quick. And now I know you're not in my tribe, or you are. And congratulations and welcome. So it's a tool, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing.
How about we get into, I'm going to use this just as a business consulting session. I'm just going to be selfish as hell.
Do it.
Let's talk a little bit about social media, because that is a whole new monkey in the room in the world of the world, but in the horse world particularly. And from a clinician standpoint, that means there's a whole lot of noise out there now. And from the customer's standpoint, that means there's a whole lot of noise out there now. And it can be pretty difficult if you don't already have a picture of the whole map to know whether the information you're reading is good information or not. So how do you view or deal with or check in the world of social media?
As when you say check in, like how do I keep up the tabs as to what's happening, or how do I decide what I'm going to do to get cut through the noise?
There you go. More the cut through the noise. How do you organize it, sort it, deal with it?
Yep,
So
absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as a very simple framework to follow, and we use this, whether it's a long form video for YouTube, if it's a written post for Facebook, if it's a TikTok video, is a hook and a story and an offer of some sort. And the offer means, when I would say offer, it could also be / call to action, right? It could be like this video if you want to see more of it. It could be tag a friend. It could be, hey, be sure to click that link in my bio because we're going to do a free training on Tuesday and you don't want to miss it, right? It could be an actual call to action, or you're selling a course or promoting a clinic. It's like, hey, go sign up, go pay, And so when we cut through it, though, the one thing is, we're talking about horsemen and like the art that goes into the craft. And I think that part of it is really important, is that what we see from a really high level skill on a horsemanship level from people that are really, really good is that they can take complicated things and make them simple. Sometimes, a lot of times, people that are on the journey but aren't quite there, it's still complicated. And at the end of the day, it's breaking it down in bite-sized pieces. And so one of the things that I always strive to do is to actually speak. I never want to speak over my audience. I don't want to make them feel stupid. And I won't, like a lot of times people go, well, it's a complicated matter. Okay, we'll break it down a little bit and see if you can make it more simple so that people can understand it. It doesn't mean that there's not nuance and that there's not complexity to it, but creating content that people can consume and they don't like, to me, there's nothing more frustrating than someone talking over my head on purpose and to make themselves feel smart. And that doesn't mean, and then sometimes just there's really difficult conversations that are way more advanced than where my brain wavelength is at. And those conversations are what they are. But I do find a lot of people struggle on social media because they want to come across as smart. So they try to make something sound complicated, or they want to try to make something more hairy-fairy and connect some dots that don't really need to be connected versus just shooting it straight down the middle and providing real value. So the hooks are the fun part, I think, because how are you going to get their attention? The hook is what cuts through the noise. And you can do it through humor. I've seen some of your posts, and you can drive the humor home and get people to, what we would say is stop the scroll, like get them to stop in their tracks. You can do it through controversy, or you can do it through, I think, value. Here's 3 things that you need to know about this, or how to understand X, right? Just providing something that they know that if they read that thing, if they listen to that video, that they're going to walk away with that takeaway point, and having a really strong hook. People love lists. They love to know like that they're going to get 5 things, 7 things, 3 tips of whatever. People like quantifiable stuff. They like to know how to. It's one of the most searched things on Google, on YouTube, and on TikTok is how to whatever. So really looking at understanding your audience. We already talked about like understand their characteristics, but what do they want? What are the results that they want? What are the pain points they're trying to overcome? Create content about that stuff. And, it's like how to get my horse to get in the horse trailer. Okay. Like there's a shitload of people looking for those. Now there's also 10,000 freaking videos on how to load a horse. So you have to decide, do I really want to take the time to create a trailer loading video? Because there's a lot of noise there. And then it's just getting creative as far as that goes, like using your personality. Are you going to be someone that, like, I'm pretty serious in my content. I don't like, sometimes I'll get sassy about some stuff, but I'm not out like creating a bunch of spoofs. Whereas other folks are like, I'm just going to troll people. And it's like, fine, that if that's your style, do it,
Yeah. You are the Cinderella of cats. So that the sassy part of it definitely, that plays.
I appreciate you looping us right back around to it.
This is going to be a lifelong thing. That. Like 40 years from now, I'm going to be with a cane on the edge of some arena, too old to ride anymore. You're going to come by, and I'm going to look at some little 8-year-old kid, and I say, you see that guy right there? That's the Cinderella of cats. Like you're never, You've
And
named
so you know
yourself.
how to do it because you weren't just going to address me as that. You were going to introduce the next generation to me as that. So you make sure that it never dies.
100%. Yeah. And if I get a microphone on in front of a crowd, like you don't even have to be at the event. I'm just going to bring you up at it. By the way, y'all don't know Colton Woods? He's the Cinderella cat.
I'm going to go buy that domain so that when at least if they look it up, at least it redirects to my
.net,
website.
.com, .org. Yeah, the whole
Yeah,
nine.
100%.
Well, how do you feel? Like every once in a while, I like to do a post that doesn't answer a question, it poses one. So it's more meant to make you think, or here, I'm not going to give you the whole answer, but think about this, and you might notice that this stuff you hear about this, it doesn't really make sense when you really stop and think about it. So I don't know how to play a call to action on that, but do you think like there's maybe a ratio you can do some of those, but that better not be 80% of your content or something, or what?
Yeah, I really like just posting questions, and they can be as in depth. I've seen a couple of yours that you've posted, and they can really get you puzzled, like kind of like really dive it into the nuance of like, how does this really form? How do I formulate an answer to this? Or what is my opinion on this matter? Is it really connected? Like, is it not? Is it whatever? I think those questions are really good because the call to action is the answer. People love to talk, right? They want to tell what they believe. They want to so, and I've done things as simple as gooseneck or bumper pull ? Right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Frankly, it doesn't matter. I'm not a trailer company. It is interesting just to see what people are saying. But from a social media marketing standpoint, if I post, that was one of the ones I did that went really well, or I say English or Western, right? Something fairly trivial. I get to know my audience better though, because if I see 80% English and 20% Western, then I can kind of see who's engaged. If I see 50-50, 70-30, I can gauge where my audience is at. Same thing, bay or sorrel. Right? If I'm doing sales horses, am I ever better off to say Palomino or Gray? Oh, Palomino. Okay, cool. So if I'm running a sales horse program and I'm pulling my audience through some fun, engaging questions, I already know what I should be doing. And so it's about listening, but I'm also increasing engagement, right? Increasing engagement. So that way, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll post, it could be an in-depth question like you were referring to, or it could be something fairly trivial. And then if I did that in the morning, maybe the afternoon, maybe the next day, I post something in depth, something valuable, something that I really is part of my mission behind my business, because I've peaked the algorithm on engagement with something trivial that everyone jumped in on and commented and had fun with. And then I posted something that was valuable to my business that might have been horsemanship training related, might be whatever it is. And now the algorithm is more likely to show us people, and I can get in front of my audience again. So part of it's keeping the audience alive and keeping the fire burning, but also getting to know your audience and seeing what people have to say, because it's interesting to see.
So one of the things I haven't disclosed is my dad is actually a business consultant for a living. So I've got I've got that at my disposal all the time. But kind of like you're going to learn this when your daughter gets older. You will not be able to give her riding lessons. You're probably going to have to pay someone else to teach your kid how to ride a horse. And it's kind of that way with my dad. I mean, what the hell could he know, right? But one of the things he's always trying to get me to focus on is selling based on value.
Yes.
And I had a little bit of a meltdown yesterday. I think I'm a little famous for this. Again, I'm going to be really candid. I'm always trying to get guests to be candid. So I'm going to be candid and show y'all the ugly side of Daniel. I really do care about the horse human relationship. And I really am trying to help that. And one of the downsides of that is that I wind up giving away a whole lot of stuff for free that I shouldn't. And I'm aware of that situation. But then you also get people that maybe push that a little farther than they should. And I kind of go from 0 to 100 on the pissed off scale at one point. And I had one of those yesterday. Someone was just like, it was bit questions. That's a large part of the stuff that I get. And they kept asking me question after question, and I'm working on the computer and it's popping up as a message, and I'm it's annoying me and I'm answering them. And like this went on for 20 minutes. And then they started talking about all of the bits that they had of this one particular bit company. And it's top of the line stuff, like minimum $200 a bit, $800, you could spend, and they got several of them. And then this clinician that they've rode with, who's one of the most expensive that you can ride with. And I'm sitting there like, so you haven't bought the right bit from the really expensive bit company, and you spent thousands of dollars with this clinician, and you're bothering me for free and have not at any point thought you go to my website and spend a little money or anything like that. And man, I just blew a gasket. I mean, I sent a kind of ugly message like, look, this is as far as we go for free. And I know that the real problem there is I'm not good at setting boundaries and that sort of stuff. And I never should have let it get to the point that it got to. And I'm not obligated to sit there and answer their questions, but I'm trying to help. Mm-hmm. But then you get, the people just, they'll let you help for free as long as you're willing to help for free. So how do I fix my personality flaw and not have my blood pressure go through the roof again? Where do I set my boundaries and how do I go about that?
One thing that I've thought about one thing that's helped me in this, because I want to help people. Like I really, when someone messaged me on social media, if I can help them, I want to help them. There's a couple things. One of the situations is that, I can handle the amount of messages that I currently get. It's a lot. It's tough to get through all of them. Sometimes I do miss them and I feel bad that I miss people's messages. But I go, well, what if I was receiving 100 times more messages than I'm receiving right now, or 1,000 times more messages than I'm receiving right now? Would I be able to keep up with it? No. Would I feel bad about it? Yes. What would I do about it? Move on. Like I would just realize that I would have to accept with that amount of overwhelm of increased messaging that there would just be no way I could do it. So then I take that mindset and I start using it now. And I go, yeah, I'll message back to people I can. But if I miss people, I'm sorry. It's not personal. It's just that I have a lot of other things pulling at me at these different layers. And sometimes it means that I'll message people back once or twice, and then I've got to move on. Like I'll give them the best that I can, and then I move on. And I try to make it very clear in my content that yes, if you want a consultation in your business, there's a link. You can go pay for one and you can block my schedule off, and then you'll have me like completely private. And so I try to give people options and I don't apologize for the fact that it's how I make my living, whether it's in the horsemanship or the business, because, when we're helping people for free, it's the right thing to do. You have to give more than you take from the universe, I believe. But then also the setting boundaries, Daniel, you got to set boundaries with yourself, right? Like what is your limit? What is your rule of thumb when a certain situation pops up? And if someone starts taking you down the rabbit trail and you're like, I've seen this before, then do you just say, but the rule is, as much as I want to, my rule is I stop, right? I don't do that. And that's why we have training horse applications. Like when people reach out, even if I have a stall open, we sometimes will include like a 60-day wait period, because sometimes we have people that call and they're like, I need help now with my horse. And the biggest times that I've gotten screwed is when I've let someone jump line and just get that horse in, because they're in an emotional state of mind. And I've seen that with buying horses, sending horses into training. And so we've put buffer periods in. Like you can't just send us a horse. I'll let that stall sit empty for 2 or 3 months just to make sure you're making a logical decision and that you actually want me to train your horse for you, because it's not worth the pain that I'm going to go through if I accept the money in the short term and then have to deal with the wrong person. So it really comes down to your boundaries. And then we set rules with ourselves. Like between my wife and I, we say, this is how we do it. And guess what? When someone else is like, well, you could do this. You're right. I could. But the last time I did that, I got burned. So I'm sorry that the last person ruined it for everybody, but it's not fair to me if I keep putting myself in those situations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. It's hard to do sometimes, take some of that discipline that you're talking about. And I'll say like when you're in this business for a while, you're training horses, you're dealing with the public, it is inevitable you're going to wind up with some people out there that aren't happy with you anymore.
Yeah.
Without exception, those are always the people that I absolutely bent over backwards and did everything I
100%.
could to, and they have no idea how much I went out of my way to try to make that thing work. And that's always the thing that's going to bite me in the ass on the end. Without exception, it always works out that way. So that's that emotional mind that you're talking about. It's not good for a horse, and it's not good for a person.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to talk with you about, I know when you're advising trainers with their business, and I am going to try to get to talk horses with you here in a little bit, not just business and stuff, but one of the things you talk about is how they should go about raising their prices. And I know, like, the position you're in, I'm engaged, I'm young, I'm not riding as many horses as I want, I'm flat broke, like I don't feel like I can raise my prices. This couldn't be the time, right? And that's almost always not a logical decision. That's that emotional side of your brain kicking in. I'm reminded of a story of a friend of mine, Jeremiah Watt, who makes bits and stuff out there. He was talking about, he was at a trade show, and he's got all this stuff out, and just so happens the table next to him is this young up and coming bit maker that nobody has heard of. And he's looking over there at his bits, and he's like, for somebody so young, like, you really have got some nice stuff. And he's got all of it priced real low, trying to get some attention and didn't sell a bit that day. And Jeremiah looks at him and he says, tomorrow morning, come here 15 minutes late, and I'm going to price your stuff for you. And don't argue with me. Don't just sit behind your table and go with it. And he more than doubled the price on everything. And the guy sold like 7 bits that day, And the problem was, people would look at his bits and then look at the price and thought, this looks really nice, but the price is so low, something must be wrong. And then they run. So the same situation you're talking about. So would you talk just a little bit about selling on value versus selling on price, and kind of that dynamic? I mean, I think there's middle ground with it, like with everything else, but I think the upper limit is a lot higher than most of us believe it is. So go ahead and
yeah. So it's a lot of people, particularly horse trainers, any horse business owners that are setting their own prices, they undersell themselves because they're looking at what it's worth to them or what they think their own self-worth is. And unfortunately, they don't give themselves enough credit a lot of times for the results that they're providing with their horses. They're not, or even the experience that they're providing to their clients and the value. And ultimately, if you're talking about your dad's trying to get you to sell more on a value basis, and that's looking at the value that it is to your customer, to your client, to your student. Like, what is the value to them? What are they actually paying for? Why are they coming to you? And so a lot of people underestimate the experience. They know that it's almost expected. I have to get good quality results with the horses, but also you're providing an experience. And people really value that because they know what a bad experience looks like. And it's a shitty horse trainer that doesn't ride their horse, that doesn't communicate, that underfeeds them. And it's just a total train wreck. And we all have had people that have sent their horses to those people, and they know what a taste of a bad experience is like. And then they come to you and they can have a really great experience. There's value to clear communication, transparency, high quality feed, making time for them to come see their horse in training, teaching them a lesson. Like, all of that has value to it. And one of the biggest things that horse business owners need to do is they need to sit down with a pen and paper and go, what are the things that I'm actually providing that, even those feel second nature because it's just how I do it and just the way that my program runs? It's like, no, because all those little ingredients are the things that enable you to bake the cake, a high quality result that your client is paying for. And then you leverage, you speak to that. You talk about social media content, you speak to the fact of, this is our feeding program. This is why we do it this way. This is how it benefits the horse. And this is like why it's non-negotiable. That's a value prop to the right client, because they go, man, they are decisive about their feeding program and why they do it that way. Or do you turn horses out together? Do you not socialize them? Like, whatever it is that makes your program what it is, speaking to that, and then understanding that, like, from a financial basis, you've got your cost, like just the hard costs that go into taking care of that horse. And $500 a month is bottom line across the nation. Like, as many horse trainers as we've helped, we know on average, between your hay, your grain, your shavings, your labor, you're at least $500, and that includes the stall rate. So if you own your own facility, that should include like whatever cost goes towards your mortgage. If you're renting, right, that's a part of that, whatever that fee is associated with that horse's space towards the rental fee, and your insurance, right, your training insurance, and like having that stuff wrapped in, and it's at least usually $500 a month break even. But also, we have to look at this from a business perspective, is that horse trainers are not just horse trainers. They're providing boarding and they're providing training. Those are two independent revenue streams. And a lot of horse trainers, I feel like they go, I'm a horse trainer, I'm not in the boarding business. So they create they do it at a break even. And guess what happens? They're like, oh, I'm going to do it for $400 a month for the board because that'll just cover my expenses. And then the rest on top of that is training. Well, the problem is they usually almost always underestimate exactly how much the cost is per horse. And so they've set that price too low, and they don't realize they're actually losing money because they're not even charging enough to break even. But really what they should be doing is saying, if I own our facility, I should have a profit margin on the boarding side. That way I can reinvest in the facilities. I can improve the stall mats. I can redo the flooring. I can improve the facilities in which the horse lives. If I don't have a profit margin in the boarding side, I can't do that. And then you got the training side, right? You have labor for someone that's helping you brush horses off, turn them in and out, or not turn them in and out, but saddling, unsaddling, bathing them off. That would be part of that labor cost associated with this training side, plus the trainer's rate. You got how much is the trainer going to get paid, and then the profit margin for the business. And so all that you got a cold card, you got cost associated with all that, and then you got profit margin. And so people got to know their numbers, and they got to run it like a business. And the thing is that people go, well, I'm a horse trainer, I shouldn't charge for a profit margin for board. It's like, what if they sent their horse to a boarding facility? Do you think they're doing it for break even? No. So, and they're going to pay it. And it's not, why shouldn't you charge what it's worth if you're actually providing the results and the experience that they get? Like, it doesn't take a whole lot to create the value side, right? It's not about more stuff. It's about the right stuff and knowing what is valuable to your clients. For example, if it's cold in your area in the winter, buy a freaking Keurig, put the little Keurig cups in there with some snacks, keep some bananas in there, and say, hey, when you guys come in, feel free to go in the warm tack room and get yourself a cup of coffee. Come on out here, and we'll get started as soon as you're ready. Keurig cups are not that expensive, but the idea that they can come in and they can have an experience and they feel at home and they have fun, and they can meet their friends, that is valuable, and you're facilitating that. And so one thing I'm going to finish up on this is it's not more stuff. And I hope that whoever's listening to this podcast episode is listening to this point, is that it's not about you doing more and working harder and bending over backwards and doing backflips. It's about high quality results, and it's about the high quality experiences, which means listening to your clients and doing the small things really, 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 really well. That's what people want. The people at the bottom, you're talking about that person that messaged you for free, they just went on and on and on and on and on. Those are the wrong people, right? Because the bottom feeders always want more for cheaper. Those aren't our people. Those are not the people that we can actually help. We want the people that respect our time, respect our boundaries, trust us to get the results that they're paying us for. And, and we like working with them. And those people with the right characteristics, they expect quality and they expect the results. It's very simple, but it's knowing how to do the small things really well.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You were saying knowing how to do the small things really well, I think is what you were finishing up on. One of the things that I try to remind myself, I especially do this with my wife. She and I are both kind of odd ducks. We have the 2 of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types. I don't know if you ever looked
Yeah.
into any of that.
Yeah.
We have the two rarest of the whole list.
What are those?
She's an INFJ, which is the empath, and in fact, she's a female INFJ, so it's the rarest of the rarest. And I'm an INTP, which is the logician or the engineer. So we're both in the like 2% of the population kind of group. And I constantly have to remind myself that I am not my customer. My customer does not think the way that I think. They don't value, because I'm kind of tight too. I'm like, this shirt covers my nipples. The fact that it's got a stain on it is irrelevant to me. I've already done what a shirt is supposed to do, and so it's fine. But I understand that some of my customers, they don't want to see a stain on your shirt or a hole in your jeans, or that's what they value, but it isn't what I value. And so I have to remind myself that I'm not my customer. I have to keep in mind who my customer is and how I need to approach them. And that has to do somewhat with that price too. I'm a tightwad, but hopefully my customer isn't. And I'm also an extreme do-it-yourselfer. And more than likely, if they're coming to me for training, they're not an extreme do-it-yourselfer, So
I think that's a really good point too. And just to bring up is like a lot of people do sell out of their own pockets. I'm a tight ass too, like I could have been born in the Great Depression. I might as well have been with the way that I am with money. But I've really consciously gone at that with a hammer and a chisel, because I know that it's not going to move me in the direction I want to go. But it is my natural disposition. And one of the biggest things that does hold people back in a service-based business is selling out of your own pocket. And what we deem affordable or reasonable or fair is not what other people deem reasonable, affordable, or fair. And, we're not in the business of being affordable. We're in the business of being in business and being able to take care of our families and being able to do the things with, money to me is just energy, right? It's an exchange of value. I provide all of this to my clients, and the value that they bring me is not smiles, it's money. And then I can take that energy and I can go deploy it in all the ways that I want to. And, and sometimes that means going to buy a freaking dairy goat. And other times that means making an investment, it's like, but it's energy. It's the things that we can do with it. But we have to be mindful of not selling from our own pockets, but looking at what they believe it's worth, because that's what got me in trouble early on. Is I set my prices based on what other people told me I should, based on what they thought my worth was. But I had all these other people that are like, we baseline will not send you a horse unless you charge more, because for them, they had to leave that much value, had to leave their hand for them to realize that I had enough to get the results that they wanted.
I always, when I'm needing to remind myself of that, I think of coffee. So like you had your coffee mug earlier, you're a plain black coffee. It blows my mind that people will drive in their car to a store to pay $6 for a cup of coffee. I cannot believe that Starbucks is in business. There's no way, like my corpse would not go through that drive-through and pay $6 or $8 for a cup of stinking coffee. And yet, right, multi-billion-dollar business. So that's always my little reminder when they show up.
So here's an interesting concept with that. So just a business aside, if someone goes to Starbucks, right, how much of that is about the cup of coffee?
Yeah, I agree. They don't actually sell coffee. They sell an experience, right? Yeah.
Right. But I think they also sell status.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like this cup has the University of Kentucky on it. This is status too. Like, hey, they have their logo on the side of their cup, and then all these, girls in their UGG boots go to the office and they have the Starbucks cup, right? Versus what if one of the girls comes in with their homemade cup of coffee? They're like, you didn't get Starbucks, right? And it's kind of tissed down, versus people like to be seen with the Starbucks mug, or now Stanley has rejuvenated as if it was a new brand that hasn't been around since 1913. But like people are running around with their Stanley tumblers as a status thing. And I think that the same can be attributed. We see this already in the horse industry. Some people ride with clinicians or go ride with certain horse trainers or horsemen and women to say that they did, because it's a status thing. Now, I've experienced that. I've had people come ride with me and then they never come back. And then they go around telling people that I've ridden with this person, ridden with this person, ridden with this person. For me, that's not my person. Sure, they came, they paid, I made some money, but I want the people to come back. I don't want to be a status symbol, but I do believe from a service-based horse training standpoint that people can incorporate that understanding that people that are willing to pay for value also will pay for status, so that they can say, I sent my horse to Daniel Dauphin, and oh yeah, he was over there and they got this much training and oh, my horse is there. That is a value. If your program has enough esteem to it and you build enough esteem to it, people will send it to you so they can say that they've done business with you. And that is a part of a leverage of building a brand. It's why Nike charges more than another brand, and it's why Starbucks charges more than Dunkin' Donuts, because it's a status symbol and a brand lever, and it creates profit. It doesn't cost you anything. And so that's I'll just draw that point from a Starbucks analogy, because I think that's a really important piece of how something that all horse businesses can incorporate into theirs is like, people pay for status. They want to be seen. They want to know. They want to be like, brag. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Let's talk horses a little bit. So you moved from Kentucky to Texas so that you could chase the cows on some cow horses over there. But correct me if I'm wrong, still a large part of your business in terms of lessons and customers is an English sided business. So how do you do all that? Do you ride in an English saddle when you're training a lot of times and so forth, and do the—
Not usually. I mean, I will for sales horse videos, and if we've got to take one over fences or something like that, then I'll do it. I've got half chaps. I usually do half chaps in my paddock boots and jeans. I don't usually always go into the breeches, but I do have the pairs of breeches, but I'm sticking with my jeans.
I will say, I'm going to say this out loud. So I don't say this a lot, but my first actual paid riding job was race horses. So cool. I used to be 150 pounds and standing on the back of a horse going, and I always did it in cowboy boots and jeans. Yeah. And if you don't know why English riders wear half chaps or something like that, it is because those stirrup leathers will pinch the shit out of your leg. It is absolutely as painful as it comes.
It's like armor. So,
yeah,
it will bore a hole in your leg if you don't wear them.
So like in the Western world, we wear chaps or chinks, and that's to, you're generally protecting your thighs. But in the English world, you're protecting your calves, right? So
100%.
Anyway, so are you still doing more English horses? And if so, I mean, English is a broad world. Are you like hunters, jumpers, dressage, a little bit of all of it? What's the makeup?
So I mean, the primary function of our training horse program for 10 plus years or so was on hunters, jumpers, and dressage horses, with the occasional eventer that came through. A lot of colt starts, and then turned into a ton of problem solving. And it really got to the point to where before we left Kentucky, people were like, Colton, what do you do? And as a horse trainer, you're like trying to figure out like, how do I describe to people that are non-horsey? Like, what do you do? I'm like, I run an equine psychotherapy center. And that's what I started telling people. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, it sounds way cooler than telling them I'm training horses, because it's what it felt like. Like every horse in there had some sort of complex that was usually human inflicted. And I was trying to unwrap it and try to help that horse, have a better way of living life. And for a long time, it was fun. I'll be honest. I enjoyed it for a long, long, long time, because I enjoyed the complexity of trying to help these horses overcome the mental and emotional things that are going on, sometimes physical. And towards the end, before we moved to Texas, it got wearing, because it was dangerous at times. Sometimes it was like 51st dates, and you still had clients' expectations, and like we would get the results with the horses within the time frames, but I was starting to lose a little bit of the joy in it. And fortunately, I had a few of my own horses that we had bred and raised, and those horses were starting to show me like how much fun it could be. And I was starting to see this big gap, and I was like, and so basically, when we moved to Texas, it was a very selfish move, because it's like cow horse world down here, just outside Fort Worth, and there's some of the best of the best. I like to learn. And so I was like, you know what, if we're going to make a move, I want to come down here because I want to be around the best so I can learn from the best. And so we still continue. I basically think of it as being bilingual. Like a lot of the horsemanship stuff is almost the same or very, 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 very similar, but it's understanding how to connect the dots for folks. And so most of my clinics are with English barns, and they're usually dressage facilities. And then I have some online students, and the training horses kind of vary a little bit, but we're kind of gearing the training program more towards the Western world now, just because that's what I want to be focused on. And so it's, again, getting your business to work for you. So, but I love the English community, really well-bred horses, rode some phenomenally nice horses. Good horses are good horses. I don't care what size, and if they're built uphill or a little downhill, they're just good animals. And it's just more similar than it is different.
I really think, like we talked about earlier in the meritocracy, there's collaboration at the top and competition at the bottom. Higher level English and Western riders appreciate one another and appreciate the athleticism and the training that goes into the horses. The whole bickering back and forth of, that's low level sort of stuff right there. Even though we have different goals and all that stuff, a lot of times, like you say, the horsemanship involved and all should be pretty similar. Or the appreciation for it. I really think like I've got a good many friends that are in the dressage world, and I've done podcasts with some of them. It's exceedingly difficult to ride English in the correct posture and not be tense at the same time. There are very few people that you see pull that off. And when you do see them pull that off, either they're 13 and limber as hell, or they've got thousands of hours in the saddle and have, all their demons are exercised and they're good and they've settled down on the fire breathing dragon that they're riding there. So when you're going into the cow horse world, like, do you have a different mentality? I mean, there are some differences there, even among what we would call a cow horse. So are you showing like actual reined cow horse events, or so like we interviewed Richard Winters here a couple of weeks ago, and he made a good comparison. I thought that the reined cow horse was like the eventer of the English world. They're the three, they're like the English eventer is going to do dressage, stadium jumping, and cross country. The reined cow horse is going to do reining, the cow work down the fence and all of that stuff, and then the herd work or the cutting aspect of it. So, but there are some differences there, like in the ground, that you might want to have. And also, how are you handling those types of deals in your business? Because I don't, maybe barrel racers are right there with them, but I don't know that I've seen any group more picky about their ground than the English riders sometimes, especially the dressage people. So how do you reconcile all of that within one farm or ranch?
Yeah. Well, number one, I despise GGT footing. I'll just put that out there. I absolutely despise that stuff. I mean, I know the English people love it, but on an analytical basis, right? The micro issues that come across from not having enough slip in the footing, and like you get like tendon strains and tight
hard on
muscle strains. Yeah. Like people think it's soft and cushy and nice, but when you see that there's not give and the body's not able to go with it, and you get these little this friction between the horse, I just can't stand it. So as far as footing and those types of things from the business side, I'm figuring it out on the fly, to be fully transparent. It is not the world that I've been a part of. We bought a facility here. The ground is okay. It is a facility that we referred to as our Get to Texas ranch. And it was like, the market's been super, super, super hot. And we got pushed out of another facility that we tried to buy that probably had the perfect ground that we needed and had the setup that we would have stayed at for a long time. That one got bought out from underneath us. And so we got this place, and we've been here a little over, I don't know, 16 months or so. And we're already looking for another spot just because we're here. We're a little more acquainted. We're building equity in the farm from the business side. But the ground and those types of things is stuff that I'm learning. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what's going to be best, what works best for my training style, as well as I got a lot to learn on the cow horse side. And so it's, like I said, we came down here to learn, and it's drinking from a fire hose on a whole nother level. And I've got to be able to level up. I've got one really good horse in the barn we bred and raised. She's not going to be the horse that gets me to the point where I want to be. So I'm kind of learning on her and going through the process, but then I'm going to have to level up horse flesh at some point to really play with the big boys. And my approach is probably, I'm not in the financial position yet, but what I would like to do is buy a horse that is almost finished or is finished that I could go show and learn on, and then have another horse coming up the ranks. That way I could take both those horses with me, and I could go to people and learn and be riding a finished horse and be riding maybe a futurity prospect or a Hackamore horse. And just, I got to learn. I got to learn what it takes to be successful in that environment. And then, I'm still going to stay true to my program as far as understand the biomechanics and like what complements the horse and how I get that horse mentally and physically in the right position and like those types of things. But I've got to be open-minded enough to learn from people that are doing this really well too.
One of the things I think if I was to compliment you again after this conversation, I would probably have a different compliment for you than the first one, but you seem to be a savant at one of my biggest weaknesses. And one of the things I say is I wish I had learned to fail sooner, because I am determined, and I'm like the dog with the bone that won't give it up, and I just won't fail. I gotta see it through, and that has not served me well. If I would just recognize this is the wrong route, this is a problem, I need to change course here, and so forth. And I've learned to do that very well with horses, but not so much in other areas of life, So I like that you're not married to the ranch, not married to this, not married to that. We can make an adjustment. We're looking to make an adjustment. I think that serves you very
and
well.
I will be like fully transparent. It's not easy. Like it sounds great, but I do have a wife and I do have a daughter. And, my wife is very much the feminine type of a home and a nester and those types of things. And like, so I try to make sure I'm communicating to her, like, this is my plan. I need you to trust me. I need you to give me some time. It's going to take a lot of hard work. And, and she's entered a new phase of her life of being a mother. And we have built this business and the businesses that we have together, like shoulder to shoulder the whole way. And having a child now, you understand, like, it really, there's a whole nother set of responsibilities and time that goes into that. And, it's been a big adjustment for us. And so it's one of those things. It's like, oh, well, he's bought a ranch and he's getting ready to think about buying another place. And it's like, but the ramifications and the waves that it will ripple, like, it affects the business, it affects the home life. And yet at the same time, I think that it's like, if one is willing to make the sacrifices and to do the work that needs to be done, then then you can build that momentum and then get to a place. And then it's like, okay, then we have to realize, like, what is enough? Like, that's the hard thing that I struggle with, is like, when do you stop? And I mentioned that book earlier of Die with Zero. And that's the thing, because I don't have a quitting bone in my body. Like, I will keep going. And so the thing that I know keeps my wife like a little bit anxious is like, he says, buy the next one, sell that one, find the final one. But then I know in the back of her head, she's going, but what if he sees the next target? Then when does the goalpost quit moving? And that's something from a relational standpoint I'm trying to stay aware of, but it's not in my body. Like, I move fast and furious, and if it doesn't work, I burn it behind the barn and I just do the next thing. But it's wearing on those around you. because like people come in and they think I'm a novelty and they think I'm fun for an hour, or I have a student here for professional horseman school and he comes in for 6 to 8 hours a day and he's like, this is awesome. And then I'm like, and then my wife looks at me and goes, I live with him and he's like this all the time. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like, so you know, I have to regulate a little bit.
I woke up at about 3 o'clock this morning. My brain turned on and didn't wait for my alarm clock to do it. And so I got up and I started working on my computer, and I woke my wife up, the glow of the computer, and she's huffing and puffing over there. And I'm like, go to sleep. You should be proud that you have a husband that got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do stuff. You know, I'm trying to change our lives here, and you should not be giving me grief for it. But
no way. Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely.
Oh. All right. Well, I'm going to be in trouble for that one. We'll find out if she listens to the podcast or not. So back to horses. Do you feel like having this blend of cow horse and English has given you a benefit of sort of like cross training? Because sometimes you have, you know, this, I know it's been one of the things with stuff I've figured out with bits. I like to make knives. I'm not going to say I'm great at it, but it's like one of my hobbies. I can get lost in the tactile effort of that. Some of the stuff I learned about metallurgy making knives was revolutionary in terms of metallurgy and bits. Sweet iron and copper inlay. Why we put copper on bits, I'm just going to tell you right now. The reason we think we put copper on bits is not the actual reason why it works. It's a process called galvanization. A bit with copper in it is actually a battery. When you put it in the horse's mouth, it literally forms a current of electricity, which makes the horse salivate, which makes the horse work their tongue, which makes the horse swallow, which helps the horse to relax. It affects the parasympathetic nervous system. There's a whole big old damn thing that's going on there. That's pure science.
So with the currency, the electric current that's flowing, good thing or bad thing?
Good, for sure.
Right.
Because swallowing is one of the most important things we can get a horse to do with a bit. But we have it backwards. We think that copper in the mouth makes the horse salivate. Well, it's not the copper. It's the copper and the other metal, because you need the two specific metals in the electrolyte solution of the saliva. I'm getting too big into that. But anyway, that whole thing,
you're good, because I will, like, my bits all have copper inlays in them, and I swear by them. I'm genuinely curious about that. But also, too, having rode a lot of English horses, I've had certain people tell me not to ride their horses with them, because I think in some rule books you cannot show horses with copper inlays, and because they say that there is an electrical current. And that's why I simply went to the good or bad, because if you tell someone this bit puts an electrical current in your horse's mouth to make them swallow, they're going to be like, what the freaking hell? Like, you know,
there's a whole long thing there. That's a paradigm shift that needs to happen in the English world.
100%.
Like the foamy mouth is actually a massive red flag of things that are not going well with the horse. And so I would like to see some of the bit rules changed in that world. And another one of those things, just since we're talking about this, is that people like shiny objects, sort of the status symbol, the logo on the cup and all of that stuff. They do not want to look at a bit that isn't shiny. But if you think about that shiny bit in the horse's mouth and then saliva around it, that's a greased pig. And that horse is supposed to hold that in their mouth. And after a little while, they're going to get fatigued, because that highly polished bit you like to look at is impossible to grip and hold with their mouth. And so that sweet iron bit rusts, and rust is texture. And now they can hold the bit and relax, and it's not near as much work for them. And when we see all that foam, that tells us one of the things going on is their mouth is fatigued. And because they're fatigued, they're not working their tongue anymore. They're not swallowing anymore. The foam, I mean, there's the parotid gland and the salivation that has lathering in it. I wrote a really long post on this not long ago. I'll send it your way if you want to.
Oh, I read it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. So there's a whole kettle of fish involved in why it's bad, but we get into some of those dogmatic situations, and a foamy mouth is a wet mouth, and a wet mouth is a good mouth. Well, why is a wet mouth a good mouth? Let's look at it backwards and see if it goes the right way. So What would you say if you could name a couple of cross training things that are helping you one way or the other because of your two loves there? What would you give us?
Yeah, so I mean, on a very rudimentary level, I think that from the Western industry, I think the amount of responsibility that we give horses is a tremendously positive thing. The amount that we, if we're going towards the idea in both worlds of collection, right, and then not just holding a horse together to get them collected in like air quotes, but to truly have a horse that is carrying themselves and maintaining that position and utilizing themselves in a biomechanically correct way. I really like a lot of the aspects in the Western world of how much we start to give those horses responsibility, and we try to kind of disappear a little bit into some of the training and be like, hey, at a certain point, you got to start doing this yourself. Now, on the flip side of the coin, I think that in both industries, certain things get overdone. Sometimes in the Western industry, the things that get overdone are a little bit more animated. They're a little more evident that they're being overdone. Sometimes they're not even questioned. It's just the way we always done it. And those things certainly have ramifications. And I think that for me, understanding how true classical dressage complements the horse and isolating whether it's a haunches in or a shoulder in, and how those isolate certain parts of the body to strengthen a particular muscle or to get them better prepared for a canter departure or to help the horse breathe better or whatever the case is, that I like the emphasis from a classical standpoint in dressage on the how specific it is about what we're getting the horse to do and how the horse is using themselves. Versus, I think like the Western world, we're very functional. Like we're going to ask the horse to do, this is the exercise we're going to do, and this is what it looks like to be done correct. But I don't know there's as much forethought into how it's affecting the horse. Like we just know what we're like. A lot of people know what they're looking for in the result. And so the horse is very mentally responsible for that, getting that result done. Yet the classical side of dressage can be more intentional about the different parts of the horse and how we're influencing that. And I find for me that one of the things I underestimated the most early on, and I worked with an osteopath in Kentucky, like really, really, really closely throughout the years. And, she would like, as she felt I was ready, she kind of shared more and more things with me and that would help my training program. And fundamentally, I underestimated how long it really takes to get a horse strong. And when I started being more intentional about the strength building, because I think a lot of people get their horse, they're like, oh, they need to be stronger. I'm like, yeah, stronger and smarter, not just stronger. Don't just go out there and lunge your horse like an idiot. And like, then they're going to end up like some of these horses that can go for an hour and a half, 3 hours, and they're no smarter. So I always say, get them stronger, get them smarter. At the same time, build that confidence. And so I just started putting a lot more emphasis on utilizing some of the dressage maneuvers to do strength building exercises, and even to allow my program to get the horses stronger, in which allowed the mind to be more confident and allowed the emotions to be more steady and allowed the body to be able to maintain things longer. Like it just, that was kind of really what I started looking for. And so I like the biomechanics of the English world, to sum it up, and I like the mental responsibility and emotional fitness of our Western horses. And then on a rudimentary level, I'm bringing that together.
I couldn't agree with you more. It took me a lot longer than it took you, I guess, to appreciate the physical side of things in the horse. I think part of that was that I spent almost all of my time on young horses, and you don't have long-term chronic problems with young horses. You never saw any of that sort of stuff. Although, like I'll say, one of the weird things there, I've always been a 2-year-old man. That's kind of how I think of myself. And now we have these notions of riding 2-year-olds is wrong and that kind of thing. And I'm still a 2-year-old man, and I don't think it's wrong at all. I'll say one of the weird things is when the horse slaughter ban happened in 2007, just a weird shift in my business. Can't explain why, but it happened. I started getting in a lot of older horses to start, like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds.
I had more soundness problems out of those horses that had just been out in pasture their whole life than I've ever thought about having out of the 2-year-olds and that kind of stuff. And I'm not really sure why that is, but I think part of it is those 2-year-olds were building the strength all the time. There's that growth plate chart that floats around the internet about the different joints and things as they mature. Most of the places that people are looking at on that chart aren't the places we have soundness problems in horses, like the x-raying of the knees before we're going to start.
Everyone goes to the knees. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, you're looking at a growth plate at the end of a long bone. In my entire career, thousands of horses, I can't think of one that ever had a lameness or soundness problem associated with that. Like, this just isn't the place that you're going to have a problem. So why are we focusing on it? And then you have, with the horses, there's a microfracture process. So as they're being exercised, as they're working, you get these little bitty fractures, microscopic ones in the bone, and those recalcify. And when they recalcify, it's more dense than it was before. The same sort of thing happens in the joints, the cartilage, the meniscus, and all of that stuff. So that 2-year-old that was ridden as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, when he's 5, he's not anything physically like a horse that sat out in pasture till he was 5. There, you got 2 totally different animals physically on your hands at that point.
Yeah, I think it's like, are you gonna let your kids sit on the couch and eat potato chips until they're 18 and then go become a college athlete? It's like, no, that's ludicrous. Like, why do we have kids sports? Because fitness is good. It's healthy. It develops good mental habits, good emotional habits, good physical habits. But also, like, I think also you're a 2-year-old guy. I have nothing against starting 2-year-olds. I think some 2-year-olds are not ready to start, and some are more than ready to start. You know, you got the mental and the physical aspect of it. But at the same time, I think people think when they see a futurity horse showing, they assume that it's like that the entire 2-year-old year. They have no concept that it's like, it's lighter, more consistent. Like, I'd be curious I'll ask you this after this question, but like, you know, for me, when I start my 2-year-olds, most of the days, like, if I'm going to ride them 4 to 5 days a week, most of the time 4, like, if I'm riding them say 5 days a week, 3 of those days are mainly trotting, walking and trotting, and 2 of those days might be loping. And it's not a shitload of loping. It's just, we need to go out there and build some of those muscles and move around. But I'm not going to be loping them and loping them and loping them and loping them like they don't need to be.
Yeah.
And so it's a fairly lighter program. And then once they do hit that 3-year-old year, they are more balanced. They are stronger. You can ask a little bit more of them, and they'll go from 5 days a week to 6 days a week. But I'd be curious to know, like, what's your approach on your 2-year-olds as far as a physical aspect?
So I completely agree with you on that. I think most 2-year-olds are good to go ahead and start. Some are not. You know, I've raised horses that just, for whatever reason, they were a little slower in maturing, and I got no problem looking at that one and going, let's look at that one again in 6 months and see what they look like then. So I'm not saying all horses should or need or can be started as 2-year-olds, but I think that some it's fine. I am pretty much like you in that I don't do a lot of loping. I probably spend, well, I'll say this has been a shift. It used to be that I probably spend 75% of my time at the trot. That really is where I did almost everything. As I'm getting older and more technical and mechanical, I do more walking now than you ever could have gotten me to do when I was 25. You know, one of the things I kind of say is that the more I dig into this and the more technical and thoughtful I get about it, I could absolutely design a walking course on a horse that no human on the planet could successfully complete. There can be more complexity to that than you can possibly ever achieve. So there's a whole lot that you can get done at the walk that I appreciate now. At this point, I am a huge fan of ground poles, which when I was strictly a cutting horse 2-year-old futurity guy, there's probably no way, and that was way too English. There's no way in hell you were going to get me to go use some ground poles. And I think in terms of building a horse up, that's probably like the biggest bang for your buck that you could ever possibly have. One of the things when I talk about some people that are in the English world, like I think they highly undervalue or underestimate the effectiveness of backing a horse up.
Oh yeah.
I think it big time helps to develop strength and coordination and even the mentality of it. I use it a lot of times on a young green horse. It can be a truly valuable tool for the mind because they don't do it enough that they're good at it. And so if you get a horse that really gets troubled or bothered, you can start working on backing, and it causes them to focus and get thoughtful. And it can be one of those things that brings you right back. So there's a huge mental aspect to it as well as a physical aspect. And I would 100% say that when you're riding a young horse, you need to be protective of that horse. And I would agree with you in the English world. If I were to say that, they would probably be thinking physically, and in the Western world, if I say that, they would probably be thinking mentally. And I really mean both. But like in the cutting world, you've got some of those horses that are royally bred, and they are phenomenal stoppers right out of the box. And I'm not going to take that super athletic colt and go rip the ground open with him everywhere I can just because it's fun for me. I'm going to be protective of that horse, and I know working cows on him, he's so phenomenally talented at this. I don't have to worry about that. If I need to turn the heat up on that 6 or 8 months from now, it's going to be right there when I need it. So I'm going to be way more protective of that horse. I've also really always appreciated, we were talking about the trot. If we're working on horses that are trying to rate or stop a lot, at the trot, there's always a hind leg coming up underneath that horse. And at the lope, that is not true. At the lope, there's sort of a sweet spot to stop, but at the trot, there isn't. And so when I'm trying to work on those things with a colt, I love the trot. It's a way better place. And I do find, like, when I'm trying to teach a horse to stop, a reining guy would not like to ride behind me because my horses are 4-wheel drive. They're not that slide kind of a thing. To me, a stop means in as short a period of inches as possible, cease forward motion. Not let's make this stop last 30 more feet if we can, So that's not what I'm going for. You need to use all 4 legs to get this thing shut down. We do predominantly, of course, want you to use the hind end, but the front legs are valid and a part of this whole deal too, right? So I'm just going to get on a whole bloviated path here now. I don't do a ton of loping on them, and I probably do less and less the older I get. In fact, like first 30 days, I do enough to where I'm pretty sure I can lope and they're not going to buck. And that's probably about where I leave that. I might not lope for 2 weeks. Sometimes it just depends on the horse and what's going on. I don't feel like I need to go out there and lope 10 circles each way every day or anything like that. So, okay, I'll shut up now. I probably took that a little further than I needed to.
I want to follow up with you real quick on that because, the backing up, hands down, like most under freaking utilized tool in the toolbox that people have. The English community, it's like 3rd level dressage. We're going to start backing up. It's like, this is ludicrous. Like the first ride, if a horse allows me, I'll like put the seed in there, be like, hey, why don't you think about it? One thing that I would love to hear your thoughts on this from your experience, but something that I've started changing is because my start was around the vaquero style of horsemanship. A lot of those horses, like it is a slow process in how they bring those horses along, and at least how a lot of the clinicians are like, and I agree, like you should walk, trot, canter on a loose rein. Like I think it's a valuable point. But as my knowledge and understanding is advanced into the biomechanics of how a horse should use themselves, I've started to get them softer earlier, like in the fact of like getting them to actually use themselves and getting soft through the reins and changing the points of balance in their body. And I mean, I'm all about playing around the walk, but even just at the walk and the trot and doing those backing up to walking forward transitions and then walking and then trotting into that and maintaining a roundness through the body, even on the 2-year-olds, so that they actually use themselves correctly in the way that's what I'm kind of considering the easiest and best way for their bodies to use, so that they're not using themselves like with their head up in there and their back down, and they're trying to lope this circle around there, but they're doing it almost the hardest way possible. And so you're talking about starting 2-year-olds in general, and people are like, oh, that's controversial. And then you start to see, I've started to get my 2-year-olds to look more like performance horses, to where they're round, they look more advanced. But the reason I'm trying to approach it that way is so that they're using their bodies well and they're not wearing and tearing other parts because they're compensating wrong. Mm-hmm. And so what's your thoughts on, like, how much softness do you get on your horses and how early, and like, how do you approach that side of it with yours?
So one of the things that I'll say, and I haven't really talked about this, I've been thinking about writing an article on this, but I don't really think in terms of getting a horse soft anymore. Sure. I think in terms of not getting a horse braced. That's usually that. I kind of think they're pretty much born soft. They just don't know the cues. Yep. And if you teach them the cues and don't get them braced, they're pretty much all going to be soft. Most people have a very difficult time not getting them braced. So I think most of the work they're doing on softening the horse is fixing the mistake that they caused on the horse. So that, and again, we're talking about 2-year-olds, we're talking about wear and tear. If I ride that horse around braced 80% of the time and fix it later, I wonder why I have to call the vet and the chiro. And I tension in the body is it's the enemy. You're trying to get that out of there as much as you can. One of the things I talk about in the bit presentations is that it's all about the tongue. That's the first muscle that you communicate with. I'm really big on having people not ride behind the vertical, and I talk a lot about that. But regardless of that, you can have a horse that's well in front of the vertical and still get him sore in the pole, which seems like it would be weird. But the reason you get him sore in the pole is because you cause tension in the tongue, and it then radiates throughout the horse's body. So everything's connected to everything. And the main deal, it's kind of what I view the essence of horsemanship as being, is being able to get along with and communicate that horse in a way that doesn't basically shove him over into the sympathetic nervous system and where they're going to have a bracing response. So I don't know if that fully answers your question or not, but that's
no, I think that approach, right, the perspective and how you look at that is valuable, because I mean, like, a lot of times that comes down to how you just simply approach the situation. And it's like, am I trying to get a horse soft, or am I trying to prevent braciness? And and then that could change the idea of like, well, do I need to kind of bump my leg on this horse to get them to be soft, or do I need to take a hold of this horse and use my leg or use my rein aids in a way that allows the braciness to melt away? And that whole approach can change the dynamic of how your horse feels about the situation, as well as how they respond to it. So no, I think that's super valid. I think that, one of the things I think about too is how it affects their balance. And so that when I do take a hold of them, I want to feel that those changes through their body. And if they're braced up, right, then it's obviously going to have a pretty, not I'm going to say obvious, but there's going to be a standout thing of like, oh, I take a hold of this horse and that causes a brace. Then what do we need to do now, right, to help that eliminate that? But not just having the little squeaky door hinge as a freaking head that gets soft there, but the horse actually starting to think about, do I need to transfer weight to this hind foot, to this hind foot? What are we doing here in a way that allows that horse to move? People don't like to talk about horses like machines. My brain works that way. I like to think about a very well-oiled machine that is just all the pistons are functioning. Nothing's clanking, nothing's ticking, nothing's getting hung up. And that horse can just move through themselves all the way through, and there's no resistance in the mind or the body. Then I'm like, okay, if we're feeling something close to that, we might be on a decent track.
Yeah, I'm pretty mechanical, and I'm unabashedly mechanical. To me, it's the way to approach
things. It doesn't mean I don't consider the mind or anything like that, but stuff like you're talking about, where's the weight, how's the foot going to work, or if I ask the horse to do something at the wrong time, then if he tries to obey me, he's going to get off balance or tripped up or something like that, and then he's going to not trust me. So knowing where the feet are and when to ask and all of that kind of stuff, I think that's one of the huge differences. Like you talk about the Vaquero thing and them having this 10-year time period of what we're gonna, one of the hallmarks to me of something working is that it works right now. And if it doesn't work right now, then maybe you need to change. So it's not that my goal is to be as fast as I can be with a horse, but the horse getting it and changing in real time is certainly evidence of this is having an effect on the one I want. I don't think there's virtue and it took me this much longer to get this done on the animal. I've never understood that argument. There's a difference between rushing and succeeding, I guess.
I mean, we went to Portugal and rode over there, and one of the big things that they helped me with was they changed my riding position into the backup, and I felt a backup like I had not felt before. And I came home, landed the next day, I rode 12 horses, and I used that position on all of my training horses and my personal horses, and they all backed way better when my body was in a better position. And it's like they had just had maintenance work for the last 10 days. No one was really teaching them anything, and I just got on them, changed my position, and they start marching back, and I'm like, holy living shit. When it makes an immediate effect, then it there's truth to it here.
Now, one of the things I'll say is and I talked about this at length with Patrick King, but I'm not a big equitation guy. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that there are positions, I'll certainly agree, that make more sense for this or for that or whatever. Because again, I'm a mechanical guy, right? But I fully give myself permission to violate those rules for something lower on the hierarchy that I need. So maybe I've got a colt that doesn't want to take the right lead. Well, I know I'm a good sized guy. If I lean far enough in the right way, he's gonna fall down or take the right lead. I can get out of the box and just, I'm like a star whose gravity's gonna take it with me. So there are times I have no problem doing that sort of stuff. And now maybe they see the light. Hopefully I did it in a way that didn't brace them. The next time I don't have to exaggerate it as much. The time after that, I exaggerate it even less. In a week, I'm, where somebody would have wanted me to be initially. But I view that as helping the horse. If I was pretentious about it and said I have to be in this little box and I can't ever move, and then it takes me 3 months to have that same effect on the horse, that's not the decision I would want to make. I don't see the virtue of I'm perfectly good with breaking a rule as long I know the rule, so I'm not breaking it out of ignorance, and I have a reason to break it. All good. Let's go.
That's it. I mean, you kind of have to know the rules before you can break the rules, and then even then, it's still about helping the horse find the answer. The feet follow the mind. If we can get the mind in the right direction, and then that's a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Man, I feel like I have run you for a long time here, and I'm not real sure what else to ask you unless we go deep into the business stuff again. And I don't think I want to drag you back down that hole. Is there anything that you would like to talk about, or anything? I am gonna jump into your offerings, your courses, and all that stuff in a minute. So aside from that, is there anything you want to chat about, or that you wish I had asked you that I have forgotten here?
I mean, nothing like that was like a head hunting type thing that I came in like saying, hey, we needed to cover this or that. Okay. I'm glad that you got selfish with it. I mean, if there's anything that I can help you with, I'm happy to. If you do want to go deeper on it, I don't care.
I just don't want to backtrack, I guess, is the thing. I didn't last. So I'll tell the dirty little secret. This is the second time that he and I have had this whole conversation. I forgot to hit record first time we recorded this, and we actually had a different conversation this time than before, but I felt like I kept you all in business mode the last time, and I didn't want to do that to you this time. So I'm consciously trying to avoid that gravitational force. So no need for me to be selfish there, but I just wanted to be sure we had unpacked everything we wanted to unpack. We didn't leave something on the table. So you're good?
Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, the only thing I tell people is just like, you know, if you've got that purpose and if there's that vision that you have, you need to chase it, and I think maybe the last time I think we might have hit on this, like maybe it's not always about chasing the passion and trying to turn it into a profession, but it is about that inward fire that we have with it. And then understanding that, hey, if my passion is to train horses, you have to be good at it. You have to be able to get really good quality results. And if you're not quite there, then you need to focus on the skill sets of being the best farrier, being the best body worker, being the best saddle fitter or the horse trainer or whatever it is. And, really focus on getting those results. But there's a lot of broken ideology in our business because we're so far behind in some ways. Like we all got to die broke. And that part is really annoying to me. And I say annoying because at this point, my emotions don't even get peaked. I just get kind of a little solemn and sad for some folks that still think it's true because there's so much opportunity out there and there's ways to do it ethically. Like everyone likes to look at extremes and they're like, oh, I have to die broke or about this or about that. And then there's other instances where, other folks think that because they're making really good money, they're taking advantage of people, and it's been done with the conniving, and it's like, oh, it's snake oil sales, and it's like, no, like, really good sales is serving people. And if you can get really good results and you focus on serving people and you understand how to present it through a value-based position, there's more than enough business for every one of us out there to be really successful. And is chase it, go do it, like learn from people. Like we're not like we started this whole thing. We're not getting out of this thing alive. Mm-hmm. So why not make the world a better place while we're here? Make it a better place for the ones coming behind us. And, and if money is just a representation of how much value we've learned how to capture from the value that we're providing, then that's a good thing, because then we can better take care of all those around us and the people that we're serving. So I'll stop right there. And then if you have any follow-ups on that, like we can certainly dive down that, but
I was just going to ask you, you had talked about the ladder earlier with the 4 steps on it. And I was wondering if that's almost like 4 different stages of your career, because your first decade in this business, you should be working on skills. 100%. If you're 22, I'm sorry, you're not very good. It's just that simple. You need to be working and learning. And I don't care if that's farrier work or body work or training or, there's just no 2 ways about it. But there should be a decade later or something, another season where you're now competent. And you can kind of hold your own. You may not be the best anymore, but you can operate at a level where you're like the bracing. You're not causing problems that you have to fix, hopefully, anymore. Now you're holding your own. And so would you say those are sort of seasons of your career where now we've attained this first step and we're working on the other? Would you mind expounding on that a little more?
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? If you can't get it figured out in a decade, you might want to find something else to do, because you could have been a brain surgeon, and you could have been doing really freaking well. And so part of it is looking at it from a very unromantic standpoint and going, like, am I good enough to make this happen? And I say that very carefully because so many people beat themselves up about, I'm not good enough, I'm not this. It's like, quit listening to your mom, quit listening to the people around you that don't want to see you win, that want you to play it safe, and listen to the people that have actually done it and will objectively look at you and say, this is not about your feelings, this is about what I can tell you based on what I see, and go from there. And for me personally, I mean, I looked at this deal as it still is. it very much to me still is a uphill freaking climb. I will always feel behind in my broken mindset that I live with. And the thing was, though, I came into an industry that I have no family from. I am the black sheep on both sides of my family, like have no horseman DNA that should say this guy has a damn bit of a chance to be successful in this business. And for me, multiple different life events that, as I was way younger, put a good chip on my shoulder. And I've always said, give me the hard times that I'm going to make it really good. Like I'll put that on my shoulder and I will pack the weight as heavy as it can get and I'll carry it to the top of the mountain and I'll keep going. And that's just how I'm naturally wired. And so in the beginning, I knew I have to learn. And it was like, shut up, don't say anything, learn, ask good questions. Like just watch, do, and ask good questions. And I will say that, like, even on the horse side, made an entire move across the country so I can continue learning. And so as much teaching as I do, I teach the things that I'm very confident in and the things that I know I can get good quality results with, but I'm still learning. And there's things that I'm learning that I'm not teaching because I don't feel like I understand them enough. And so I'm going down that path. But from a business standpoint, that 4 levels of value, it comes from a guy named Myron Golden. He's a big time entrepreneur, and he teaches that. And I will say that when I learned that, it gave me an auditing system for how I was spending my time, because I have really big goals. I have really big dreams. I have a family to take care of that's growing. And I realized if I continue to live my entire life implementing on that first level of value, I will not be able to achieve the things that I want to achieve in life. Because if I'm constantly trading time for money, I only have so much time. And regardless of how valuable my time becomes, if I'm sacrificing my time to get money, then I can't spend my time with the people that I want to spend my time with, which would be my family and other horsemen and going places around the world, because I'd have to be working all the time. And so it challenged me to go, well, how can I continue serving people in impactful, real ways to get real results? But I can move up the levels of value to where I can create a more scalable income. And so it just gave me a pathway. I think we brought this up earlier and we're just now getting to it, but is there a pathway for people that have the skill sets to develop really successful businesses? And there is. It is understanding where are we spending that time. And every day I spend time in implementation. Every day I spend time in communication because we have teams. Every day I spend time in communication. And every day I try to spend, not every day, but multiple days a week, I try to spend time in ideas of just getting those things that come to my mind. Because if my wife had to take a sip of wine for every time I said I have an idea, I would have killed her a long time ago. So I have figured out to write them down in the notes section on my phone or in a journal and just say, I don't have the mental capacity, financial capacity, time capacity, team capacity to make this idea a real thing, but I will capture it and set it over here. And when I later do, if it's still a good idea, then I'll take execution on it later. And usually it's a bad idea and it gets killed and it goes away. But yeah, that the 4 levels of value have been game changing, because it's made me be willing to be unromantic about the idea that I got in this. Selfishly, I started working with horses because it's what I enjoy doing. And it's like, I want to spend my life on the back of a horse. I rode with Kip Fladlin out in Iowa. I was single. I was 19 years old, and we would ride horses all day. And then in the evenings, after we ate dinner, I would walk outside, call home, and I would rope the dummy. I had nothing to worry about. I had nothing to do. I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to get. I had nowhere to get there, like no way to get there. I had nothing other than to do to watch the sunset go down in Iowa. And I was like, you know what I want to do the rest of my life? This. And that's what I thought. But I had nothing, no other responsibilities. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a mortgage. And so life changes. And I think that I've been unrelenting to willing to change what I'm doing based on to get to where I want to go. And also to make sure I'm serving the people that I'm responsible to, whether that's the employees, whether that's my wife. And so my journey has changed a lot. And my dad used to actually be like, my parents, not just my dad, but my parents would be like, man, you change your mind a lot. And I do. I change my mind a lot, but my focus and my vision has always been in the same direction. I just don't know how I'm going to get there. And my biggest goal at night is to lay down at night and know that I gave it my best. That way, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I have no regrets, and I did everything I possibly could to leave it all on the table that last day. And that also that I'm not anxious about how I treated somebody or a business decision I made. That, if I, like, honestly, last night, someone tried to ask for a refund over something that we executed on. And I was like, my wife asked me, like, how do you want to handle this? And I was like, we could give a refund. I have the ability to hit the button, but principally based on what they signed up for, what we delivered, and the entire thing, I was like, they received multiple email notifications that they were going to be billed. Like, we have all these systems in place to make sure that no one's money gets taken without their knowledge. And then they get billed, and then they contact us and be like, I want a refund. And principally, I'm like, no. Like, we did our deal. We did what we said we were going to go do. But the whole time we're having that conversation, we talked about it for like an hour. It was way too much time to spend talking about it. But I was like, if I go to bed tonight, am I going to be up? Am I going to be laying in bed going, should I have done this? And I basically say, I have to make the decision and sleep with it. And, we made the decision, and I lay down at night and I thought about it once or twice. And I say, am I at peace with what I did? Because I could change my decision. Am I at peace with it? I'm like, I'm at peace. And I went to bed, and that was it. And I woke up this morning and I wasn't anxious about it. And that's like one of my biggest goals, because I can overthink and overanalyze everything. And if I can just strive for peace, I guess it's underrated a little bit, as to finding that presence and that peace. And we know that our horses want it, but we're willing to torment ourselves, I think, a little too much. And it's like, I heard somebody say, like, you should treat yourself like you would expect your best friend to treat themselves. And like, we know when we see a really good friend doing some stuff that's not in their best interest, we call them out on it. We're like, hey, like, go take a walk, like, take your wife on vacation, like, quit stressing about this garbage that doesn't mean that much. But yet we run ourselves through the ringer. And so I spend a lot of time in my head, I guess, is really what happens here. And thinking about these things and just doing my best, to give it every day. And yeah, I want to make a lot of money, because if I make a lot of money, I've helped a lot of people. And if I can help a lot of people and I can make the world a better place, then that's all I know to do.
One of the parallels that's sort of, and man, you're probably one of those guys I could talk with for 6 hours, so I'm gonna have to rein it in here in a minute. But one of the parallels I'm kind of seeing is, it seems like your approach with business is a little bit like the approach would be with a horse. You get a new horse in, and maybe you have a little extra work on the front end. You got these things you need to fix, you need to adjust, you need to this. But then at some point, the work is done and you're on the path, and it's maintenance sort of now. I mean, it may still be training, but we don't have all this stuff to carry because we took the time, we fixed it, and now we're sort of on the path, and we're not bushwhacking anymore. I see a parallel there between the way we should be approaching our businesses and the way we would be handling our horses. I definitely agree. What you were saying there reminds me of one of Jordan Peterson's 12 rules. I'm also a huge fan of him. If I meet somebody that can't get along with Jordan Peterson, then we're not in the same tribe. I mean, if there's nothing that man says I can argue with, like, he's just total logic and ration. And so there's another filter for you right there. But one of his rules is take care of yourself like you're someone responsible for someone else, or something along those lines. Because if you are responsible for other things, then you have a responsibility to those things to be on your A game and not drugged down and fighting the world like some of us horse trainers always are, because we're broke and
life is hard and the customers are this and the whatever, and we just need to fix it and get on the right path, just like we would insist one of our colts does. So,
well, and you said like with training a really good horse, right? And I think one thing that a lot of people struggle with is the focus. And for me, if I'm training a horse, I always say that I have 4 steps that I'm kind of following. And it's first, I want to achieve that horse's focus. Because the more in a healthy way, if I can get that horse to focus in a positive way, I can get them to relax more. And the more that I can get them relaxed, the more that I can teach them and understand what I want to teach them. And the more that they understand, then I can go to balance. Then I can start actually going up the levels of advancement through getting that horse more balanced through the mind, through the body, through the emotions. And that's how I focus on it. If I lose that horse's focus, I know that if I let it perpetuate, I'm going to lose that horse's relaxation. Then I can't teach them anything. And then balance is never going to be achievable. And so, but I see like your parallel there to people training horses. Most people don't stick with it long enough. They get that horse, they start that business, and then they start in on it. And maybe it's fun for the first week. And they're like, oh, guess what? I'm an entrepreneur. I own a business, or I got this new horse. And then you go down, you get in it 6, 9 months, 12 months. And the new shiny shit wore off. It's not as sexy. It's not as fun to tell people about anymore. The rate of progress has slowed down pretty significantly. And then maybe it gets tough. You hit that rough spot. That horse goes to that time period where they're questioning whether this is the real deal or not. And maybe they're just struggling to learn that thing, and the business isn't making as much money. Maybe you're losing money, and it's the unknown. Will the horse ever come through? Will the business ever be what I dreamed it to be? And then people quit. They go, they sell the horse, they try to get a new one. They quit the business, they go get their job, and they start another business a little while later. And guess what? Now they're right back to square one, but they're 2 years down the road. And before too long in the cycle of life, you can't afford to keep taking those risks. So I think that it's kind of a gnarly cycle, because people, like family members, want you to play it safe because they don't want you to get hurt. They want you to stay comfortable because they want to see you be happy. I think that's a bad risk. That's because
death. Oh my God. Yeah. That's death.
It's death, because if I laid on my deathbed with regret, just shoot me at that point. Like, it is that whole concept, but people are surrounded by those people, those yes men in their lives. That's like, yeah, just play it safe. And it's like, if someone's listening to this and they've made it this freaking far, it's like, if you have those people in your life, you have to very consciously listen to them and be aware of what they're saying, and only take away really what you need to. And sometimes it just is merely listening out of being nice and then moving the hell on. Sometimes it means eliminating them from your circle, like completely disconnecting and moving on and not talking with them. I've done that with family members. I've done that with friends. And can be a lonely damn journey in that way. But what's the alternative? That you get stuck, that you listen to them, it doesn't work out, in 10 years down the road, you're resentful because you listened to what they said and it didn't work, and now you're miserable because you wish you would have done the thing that you knew you should have done, and now you're blaming them, and now you're in a victim mindset, and now you're just a miserable son of a bitch living through life. And it's like, it's not worth it. If you're in that place, you better let it go, and then go control the thing you can control. And that's like, that's how I approach it. I mean, I'm not telling people how to live their lives, but that's certainly how I would look at it if someone cared to ask my 2 cents on the situation.
Well, look, why don't we talk a little bit about your website and your offerings for folks that go looking for Colton Woods? What have you got for them?
Yeah, you bet. So, guys, like, as far as horsemanship goes, we teach clients all around the country. If that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to us. My website's coltonwoodshorsemanship.com. If you're a young professional and somehow you made it all the way to the end of this podcast at this point, and you need help developing your horsemanship and your business side, we do have the Professional Horseman School that's fully in-depth business development and horsemanship development, so that you can build a career in the horse industry that way. If you want to know why it's different and all those types of things, Google it, look it up, send me a message. I will get on the phone with you personally and we can talk. It's about finding out if it's right for you. It's not for everybody. It's for the people that have the right mindset and they're actually going to go do something. And then we have a business mentorship for horse business owners too. And that is across the board. We have anywhere from farriers to horse trainers, all sorts of business owners there, that if you're looking for someone to guide you in your journey, to help you with what you're doing, we have our business mentorship that way. And then the last thing I'm going to throw out there is a incredible platform called Horse Business Manager. It is a software. It is it's Horse Business Manager. It will run everything from centralizing all of your social media messages, your emails, your phone calls into one inbox. It has the applications that we talked about as far as your training horse applications, your sales horse applications, websites. It is an entire business management platform that we built. And my wife, we used it for the last 2 years. Our students have used it for the last year, and we've just rolled it out for the public to have access to. And it's a huge game changer as far as if you want to host memberships, courses on it. And it's meant for service-based horse businesses. And it's got all the systems in it that are proven, that we've used, that other horse businesses have used. And so that's been a big focus of ours, is helping horse businesses get that implemented. So those are the offerings as far as what we covered today. So,
and we'll have links to all of that stuff in the show notes and everything, where y'all can just go straight there. So, well, Colton, I can't thank you enough for coming on podcast interview 2.0 with me here. I've enjoyed this conversation. I think I was a little better organized this time, so hopefully it does wind up being a better conversation for the listeners there. I appreciate what you're doing out there. I'm glad that our mutual friend prompted me to reach out there to you and everything. I am utterly thrilled to know that you are the Cinderella of cats, and I am going to bang that drum for dozens of years. You're going to start seeing me somewhere in an expo or whatever, and you're just going to like look at your boots, just like, shit, I know what's coming now. And
we're both going to get booked. We're both going to get booked into the same expo, and I'm going to see it. I'm going to be like, oh shit. like it's already coming.
Insults and mockery is my love language. That's just how I roll. So.
There we go. Well, Dan, seriously, this has been awesome. The 2.0 version, the 1.0 was fun. This has been really, really fun. No, I do appreciate it. Like your in-depth knowledge. Like I hope I didn't even get to pick your brain as much as I wanted to on your own podcast, because I know you're such a breadth of information and knowledge and experience. And so, no, I've genuinely really appreciated the chance to talk with you, as well as just to learn from your experiences and your perspectives, and how you kind of connect these dots that us horsemen spend, time toiling over and trying to figure out, like, how exactly is this meaningful and important to us, and how do we communicate and articulate this to the public? You've got a ton to offer, and I'm super excited that folks are checking this out and hopefully listen to it and get something from it, because if anybody learned something from this, I know I took a lot away from it, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier when you were talking about the young professional, if they got this far, this is another filter. If you're a young professional who thinks you want to train horses and you did not get this far, I have bad news for you. You're not going to make it, So,
and if you did make it this far, know that many others didn't, and you're further ahead.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right. Well, thank you again, man. We'll see you on the flip side.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you next week for another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I've been your host, Daniel Dolphin.